Chapter 1525. After knowing Yi Sishue's real purpose, Yi Tianyun instantly felt that he had thought too much. He thought that she was really here to drink with the ladies. Now, it seemed that she was here for a private visit to investigate the situation here. If the other party wasn't willing, she could scare them to death by revealing her identity. Fortunately, the enforcers were very self-disciplined. If they shielded her and Yi Sishue revealed her true identity, they would be finished immediately and be expelled from the god realm of the three realms. This was the strictness of the law. If they wanted to expel her, they would be expelled without a second chance. If they were found to have shielded her, they would be expelled. There was no room for negotiation. When they were recruited, they had to adhere to the principle of fairness and justice. If they shielded her, they would only be dead. However, there were really people who made such a mistake. In the end, it was useless even if they begged for mercy. Those who deserved to be punished would still be punished. There was no room for negotiation. Fortunately, Yi Sishue didn't reveal her true identity. This proved that the enforcers were quite self-disciplined. After Yi Sishue left, she casually walked around the planet again before heading to other areas to patrol. Then, Yi Sishue continued to patrol other areas that were prone to conflict. It had always been like this. She was with someone she liked. There was no such thing. Seems like there's no such thing at all. Yi Tianyun shook his head and didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He felt that these were all rumors. He didn't know where they came from to cause such a misunderstanding. After a while, Yi Tianyun was completely sure that there was no problem. It was indeed just a rumor. Forget it. I'll just ask her personally. Yi Tianyun's figure flashed and he appeared in front of Yi Sishue. Yi Sishue was stunned at first. When she saw clearly that it was her father, she pounced on him and hugged his arm. She said in surprise, "Father, you're back." "Yes, I'm back." Yi Tianyun reached out and rubbed her little head. His eyes were full of love. "How long will it take for you to leave this time?" Yi Sishue shook his arm. "I'll probably stay for a while." Yi Tianyun thought for a while and decided to stay here for a while. Actually, every time he came back, he would look for Yi Sishue. It was just that he was in a hurry this time, so he didn't come looking for her. "By the way, I want to ask you something. You have to answer me truthfully." Yi Tianyun thought for a while and immediately wanted to get to the main topic. "What is it?" Yi Sishue blinked. She didn't know what Yi Tianyun wanted to ask her. "I heard that you have someone you like." Yi Tianyun asked in a very simple and rude manner, without any euphemism. "Huh?" Yi Sishue opened her mouth in surprise. "Who said that?" "I happened to pass by some places and overheard it." Yi Tianyun looked at her and smiled. "Tell me honestly, do you have someone you like? If so, I'll have to check it out myself." Yi Tianyun didn't intend to stop them. His daughter was already a grown-up and didn't need them to care about her all the time. He wanted to see exactly what kind of young man could win his daughter's heart. How can there be such a thing? It's simply nonsense. "I don't have anyone I like." Yi Sishue thought for a while and smiled. "It's not that I don't have anyone I like. I like father and mother very much. And Aunt Yue and the others, I like them all. Ahem, I'm not talking about this kind of like. Do you have a man you like?" Yi Tianyun felt very helpless. Did he have to say it so clearly? Didn't I say that I don't have anyone? The standard for me to choose my other half is not to be more outstanding than father, but at least to the same level as father. It's just that I haven't seen him for so long. So if I don't like him, how could there be someone I like?" Yi Sishue pouted. "Really?" Yi Tianyun looked at her suspiciously. He didn't think it was very credible. How could it be fake? "I wouldn't lie to you." "Are you suspecting that your own daughter is lying to her father?" Yi Sishue pointed to the sky and said, "When I was young, I swore that if I were to marry, I would marry someone as outstanding as father." Otherwise, I definitely wouldn't marry. Yi Tianyun didn't know whether to laugh or cry. If that was really the case, then this daughter of his was really going to be single. Isn't this a little too exaggerated? Yi Tianyun said with a smile. It's not exaggerated at all. I want someone as outstanding as father. No matter how bad they are, they have to be more than half. Yi Sishua shook her head and said, unfortunately, I haven't seen them. They are all ordinary people. There are no outstanding ones. Yi Tianyun felt even more helpless. Using himself as the standard, where else in the three realms divine realm? Unless it spread to the other 4th and 5th grade divine realms, there were many outstanding geniuses. But how could he dare to let his daughter go out now? It wasn't safe outside now. Especially Earth monarchs here, they were simply cannon fodder. Soon after, they chatted on the way back. They chatted about all sorts of things. Yi Sishua told him all her thoughts and worries. Yi Tianyun listened at the side. Along the way, he realized that his wife didn't know who his daughter liked, but she wanted him to accompany Yi Sishua more. Thinking of this, Yi Tianyun sighed deeply. So this was the real reason. He also wanted to see how his daughter usually did things and what her true thoughts were. Through this person she liked, she immediately attracted his attention. Looks like I've really lost too much in this year. Yi Tianyun shook his head. However, he didn't regret it. They were able to have such a smile now because of their strength. If they didn't have this premise, they would have been devoured by the evil spirit race in the beginning. How could they have such a smile? They wouldn't have been so calm. After spending some time with his daughter, he felt much better, as if his soul had been purified. What's going on recently? Yi Tianyun asked. The situation has been very stable recently. There are many hard-working disciples among them, and all of them are very outstanding. All of them want to become your disciple, Yi Sishua replied with a smile. Disciple? Yi Tianyun was stunned. After thinking about it carefully, he really didn't have any disciples after cultivating for so long. In the past, he didn't have much time. Now that he had time, should he take a few disciples? He had many divine generals, but divine generals were divine generals, not disciples. Only disciples were very suitable to inherit his legacy. Some divine generals weren't suitable, so he could only give up. Yes, father, do you want to find a few disciples? Yi Sishua smiled. Chapter 1526. The selection of disciples was a very important matter. It could be said to be a matter of the entire three realms. As long as he said it, all the cultivators would immediately rush over. Some of the thick-skinned deacons would probably come to participate. Yi Tianyun's reputation was too great. To them, he was simply a god. If it was said that the god emperor was the strongest in the outside world, then he was equivalent to the god emperor here. They were extremely fanatical about Yi Tianyun. All of them wanted to pounce on him and become his personal disciple. Yi Tianyun's strength is obvious to all of them, and his achievements are also higher than theirs. In the entire three realms, there was no one who did not know of his existence. As long as he did not change his appearance, he would be known immediately. Yi Sishua did not change her appearance, so she might not be known. It was the same for Shi Shuiyun. She would not be recognized if she walked in a remote area. As for him, there would definitely be people who would recognize him, and they would recognize him immediately. There were statues of him everywhere. How could they not recognize him? To put it bluntly, it was difficult not to know him. Even when they first taught children to read, they would first recognize him. After he found out about this, he could not help but wipe his sweat. It had to be said that it was too exaggerated. It had been expanded by Shi Shuiyun and the others. They all said that in order to strengthen their position, they had to start from the children. Prestige was always the most important. If they wanted to strengthen the hearts of the people here, they had to publicize everything well and let them know who was protecting them. However, they did not make things up. They all listed out the real situation. For example, protecting the three realms from the invasion of the evil spirit race. When a bunch of things were listed, it was simply a miracle. There was no need for any fake content to list out the contents of a book. After reading such books, how could they not worship Yi Tianyun? Compared to other experts, it was simply not worth mentioning. Therefore, Yi Tianyun's prestige here was very high. Everyone's dream was to become his disciple. Not to mention becoming a personal disciple, it was already very good to become an in-name disciple. Even if he couldn't become Yi Tianyun's direct disciple, it would still be an honor to become the disciple of one of his divine generals. There were many divine generals under Yi Tianyun, such as Xiaowu, who were all powerful divine generals. Their deeds were naturally recorded in the book, and everyone was familiar with them. After finalizing the plan, Yi Tianyun went to look for Shi Shuiyun to discuss this matter. Shuiyun, you're just spouting nonsense. Si Shue doesn't have anyone she likes. You just want me to see her more. Yi Tianyun said helplessly, if you want me to spend more time with Si Shue, just tell me. Why do you have to do this? If I said it directly, how could it be as interesting as you following closely behind me? Shi Shuiyun covered her mouth and chuckled. This child is using you as a standard. Who in the entire three realms divine realm can compare to you? Just for this, you definitely have to make it up to that child. Indeed, I should make it up to her. Yi Tianyun said with a smile. It just so happens that I plan to choose a personal disciple. This way, I can see many outstanding young talents. When the time comes, maybe Si Shue will take a fancy to one. You want to choose a personal disciple? Shi Shuiyun's eyes lit up. You're finally going to choose a personal disciple? Yes, while I'm free now, I'll choose one. Indeed, there must be someone who can inherit my legacy. Yi Tianyun narrowed his eyes. It was naturally impossible for someone to completely inherit him. It was impossible for anyone to learn the crazy system alone. He tried his best to pass on what he was most proud of. This way, even if he was not around, at least his personal disciple would be able to guard a region. Would the future potential of those who were personally taught by him be poor? Not to mention others, just look at Yi Shue. Yi Shue was also taught by him. Naturally, her achievements were not low, far exceeding her peers by a large margin. Only a few years had passed, and she was already a seventh refinement Earth monarch. But strictly speaking, Yi Shue would not be his disciple. The meaning was different. His children would definitely be able to enjoy the best. There was no doubt about this. Then, I'll go and prepare now. Shi Shuiyun was about to start preparing. This was a very important matter, and she definitely had to prepare in advance. Yes, you can go and prepare now. My requirements are relatively simple. The main thing is that the age cannot exceed 1,000 years. There are no restrictions on cultivation, talent, or gender. Yi Tianyun stated his requirements. No problem. Shi Shuiyun nodded. She immediately knew how to prepare. Yi Tianyun's requirements were that simple. He was not like the other forces, who had many restrictions. He was limited by age. Age was very important. If it was too long, then one's achievements would be very limited. Actually, he was already very relaxed. Those who were above 1,000 years old could not participate. They were all from the older generation. Most of them were below 100 years old. Therefore, his requirements were very relaxed. Basically, everyone could participate. He wanted to prevent the older generation from participating. The older generation should not participate and leave the opportunity to the younger generation. After giving the instructions, Yi Tianyun did not sit there foolishly. Instead, he probed with his spiritual awareness. He planned to do a simple check to see if there were any suitable ones. Although they would all come, it did not mean that everyone would really come. Some of the less talented ones were too embarrassed to participate. After a casual glance, he quickly found a rather special exception. A young man was holding a wooden stick and constantly swinging it on the tree. He smashed it again and again, leaving shallow marks on the thick tree trunk. This young man was already drenched in sweat. However, he did not give up on practicing. He continued to smash the stick again and again. It was winter. Snow constantly fell on his body and was melted by the heat emitted by his body. This scene immediately reminded him of that time a long time ago. It was the same for him. He tried one move after another, all for the sake of survival. This young man's body also had a slight defect. That was, one of his feet was not very flexible. Obviously, he had suffered some kind of injury, which made it difficult for him to recover. Although the resources in the three realms God realm were not bad, it did not mean that everything would be provided. For example, to treat his injury, he needed a high-grade medicinal pill. Judging from his situation, he could not get it. The main reason was that his cultivation was not high. He was just an ordinary core condensation cultivator. If it was a long time ago, his cultivation was indeed not bad. But in today's era, it could only belong to the bottom level. Even so, he did not give up. He still practiced the stick technique again and again. I must get more contribution points in exchange for a bone-replenishing pill. This young man's eyes were firm. There was no trace of despair in his eyes. Chapter 1527. The rules of the God realm of the three realms were all about fairness. For example, this young man in front of him was not very agile, but he could still earn contribution points. For example, sweeping the floor or farming. These were all ways to earn contribution points. The only problem was that the quantity was very small. These things were not difficult to begin with, so the contribution points could not be too high. However, with his current situation, he could only do such things. As for killing demonic beasts or picking spiritual herbs, he could not do that for the time being. However, he did not give up, because there was a hope buried in his heart. That was why he was so persistent. As long as he took his time, he would be able to exchange for the bone-replenishing pill one day. So why despair? If he could not obtain it at all, then he would despair. Tan Tiankong, Tan Lame, are you practicing here again? Hee, aren't you going to sweep the floor? If you don't sweep the floor, how can you earn contribution points? The floor has been swept clean. He should be going to plow the fields. The wooden stick in his hand is just right for plowing the fields. Ha, you're right. We'll be leaving first. Little Lame, you can slowly practice here. We'll go pick spiritual herbs and earn contribution points. When a group of young disciples passed by and saw this young man practicing with a stick, they could not help but mock him. There was no power that did not have this kind of mockery. The God realm of the three realms strived for fairness and justice, but that was only in terms of position or contribution points. As for internal unity and such, it was not easy to say. Especially for the lower levels, the management would definitely not be perfect. Unless it was a bit higher, then they strived for unity and could not have any discrimination. However, this was only on the surface. Rules were rules, and they could not completely change people's thinking. There were still people who bullied the weak. At least they would not beat people up. This was still not allowed. Private fights would be punished, unless it was a martial arts competition, but that was another matter. Just this point alone was enough to protect many weaker cultivators from being bullied. The young man in front of him was one of them. And his name was Tan Tiankong. His parents probably wanted him to soar in the sky. However, his legs were not nimble now. Even cultivation was a problem, let alone flying. If one's cultivation was too low, they would not be able to fly. They would need to be several steps closer to be able to fly. Tan Tiankong clenched his fists and ignored their mockery. He continued to hit the tree trunk, tossing himself until he collapsed. After a short rest, he limped away. It seemed that his back was very miserable. If no one paid attention to him, they would only insult him. When he returned home, his parents immediately welcomed him with smiles on their faces. Tan, you're back. It's time to eat. Come and eat with us. His mother came over and smiled. How was your cultivation today? Did you go pick spirit herbs with your friends? Although their legs weren't nimble, they could still pluck spiritual herbs. Of course, they had to be accompanied. My friends aren't free. They're all cultivating. I'll go next time. Tan Tiankong smiled warmly, but told a lie. He didn't have many friends, and most of them rejected him. Even if he had friends, he didn't want to be a burden to them. Therefore, if someone asked him to go with them, he wouldn't go and would avoid meeting them. After all, there was still a certain degree of danger in picking spiritual herbs. The god domain of the three realms wouldn't eliminate all the dangers. There would still be dangers that should exist. For example, in a dangerous place, or when picking spiritual herbs, there will be demon beasts pouncing on them and biting them. This was to let them maintain their courage. If there was no danger, then what's the difference between them and sheep? They would just stay at home. It's very safe here. If one day they could go out, wouldn't they die miserably? Therefore, there will still be people dying here. Everything depends on their own ability. Therefore, Tan Tiankong, in order not to implicate his own people, did not go with them. Those demon beasts were not weak. Core condensation cultivators could barely deal with them. Tan Tiankong's legs weren't nimble, so the difficulty was even higher. If he went with his companions, he would only drag them down. If that's the case, then I'll go next time when I have time. They didn't think that their son was lying and began to eat. Yi Tianyun, who has been paying attention to this side, felt that he was a promising talent. Perseverance has always been something he valued. Tan Tiankong endured humiliation, but he didn't give up any hope, which made him admire him very much. Then, his eyes continued to move to other cultivators. Along the way, he saw a lot of remarkable people, and several of them were in good condition, which made him feel quite satisfied. It seems that the overall quality is good. I still have some expectations for the selection of disciples. Although he could see that there were some good people, he still had to wait and see how the real situation was. There were many unknown factors, so he still had to wait and see. Soon, when Shi Shuyan announced this matter, it immediately caused 1,000 ripples, directly detonating the whole three realms. What, Heavenly Cloud's great emperor is going to recruit disciples? This is incredible. I thought Heavenly Cloud's great emperor wouldn't recruit disciples. I didn't expect him to really recruit disciples. Yes, Heavenly Cloud's great emperor is so powerful. I thought no one was qualified to be his disciple. All of them were excited as if they were injected with chicken blood. No, the recruitment standard must be very high. I definitely have no hope. Yes, the standard must be very high, such as how high the talent, and how high the cultivation level. Think about it carefully, it should be so, otherwise, anyone can participate. After hearing these things, they calmed down very rationally and felt that there was no hope for them. Their originally excited moods suddenly sank to the bottom, and they were afraid that they could only watch. What are you thinking about? There is only one standard, that is, the age can't exceed 1,000 years, there is no other limit. One of the cultivators smiled at them. What? They were suddenly shocked, wondering if they heard wrong. There was only one standard, and it was that the age couldn't exceed 1,000 years, and the rest was up to them. Did we hear it wrong? That's the condition. Yes, that's the condition. Then, what are you waiting for? Hurry up and sign up. One by one, they rushed to sign up as if they were injected with chicken blood. Life was full of ups and downs. Before, they thought they couldn't participate, but now they learned that they could participate. It was really a surprise. Chapter 1528. After this matter was announced, all the qualified cultivators rushed to the registration office. There were many checkpoints at the registration office, so there was no need to worry about not being able to register. At the same time, everything was free, and there was no need to pay any fees. While one by one came to register, it also brought endless blows. Cripple Tan, you also came to register. When they saw Tan Tiankong coming to register, they all mocked and ridiculed him, thinking that this cripple still hoped to be selected. This was simply an idiot's dream. Tan Tiankong clenched his fists, blue veins popped out, anger tumbled in his heart, but he did not erupt. Verbal attacks were not physical attacks, so the other party did not violate the rules. If it really didn't go well, he could ask the other party for a martial arts competition. To put it bluntly, if the other party insulted him, he could use the means of martial arts competition to regain his dignity. But he did not do so, everything was suppressed in his heart, and he did not want to erupt. Why can't Brother Tan come? His ability is much stronger than all of you. That's right, Brother Tan is very diligent in cultivation, more diligent than all of you. Tan Tiankong's friends all came to support, each and every one of them was extremely angry. Their friend was being insulted, they definitely stood up to refute. More diligent than us? They coldly looked at Tan Tiankong's foot and disdainfully said, even if you work hard, can hard work be used to eat? Can hard work cure this foot? If you have the ability, don't talk nonsense, directly compete with us. You. Each and every one of them was angry, and wanted to compete. Tan Tiankong stretched out his hand to stop them, coldly looked at the people who laughed at him and said, do you know why I don't compete with you? Because you are not qualified enough. He endured silently, because he did not want to cause trouble with these people, there was no meaning in it. For him, these were all small characters. He wanted to cure his foot before he could truly erupt. Otherwise, even if he showed good ability, this foot injury would always be a problem, and it was easy for problems to arise. For example, in more battles, he would become the opponent's target. Our qualifications are not qualified enough. What a joke. You speak as if you are a super genius, if you have the ability, you will be selected. If you are selected to become a personal disciple, when we see you in the future, we will directly walk backwards. All of them were furious. If it weren't for the fact that they couldn't fight, they would have already done so. I can't guarantee that I won't be chosen, but I dare say that I will definitely be much stronger than you. Tan Tiankong dropped a sentence, turned around and left, ignoring them. How could Tan Tiankong guarantee that he would be selected? No one could guarantee that they would not be selected. No one knew what Yi Tianyun's standards were. The scariest thing was not having any standards. That was the scariest. After all, what would be tested at that time? Was it a duel or something else? Everything was unknown. Without being there, one wouldn't know what the real trial was like. This kind of thing also happened in other places. Yu Yao, you're so weak, yet you dare to register here. Lu Yu, your talent is so poor. You've been cultivating for so many years, but you're still at the spirit core stage. How dare you participate? Zilong, your bloodline is at the bottom. You don't have any power at all. How dare you register? None of them were optimistic, but they all came to participate, not because they were full of confidence, but because they wanted to try and see what their real level was. More importantly, they wanted to see the person they admired. Therefore, no matter how they were ridiculed, they would try their best to participate. In Yi Tianyun's history, he had climbed from a waste without any vitality to the current supreme existence. Therefore, Yi Tianyun is more of a self-motivation target among cultivators with average talent. The location of the disciple selection was not on a planet, but a continent specially built by Yi Tianyun. Through his own means, he easily gathered the surrounding rocks or moved various mountain rocks to build a special continent. This continent was huge, larger than any planet. It was not difficult to create this thing, any heavenly master could do it. But this method, in the eyes of others, was really a godlike existence. After the preparations were complete, all the participants and spectators who had signed up could come together. However, only the participants could come to the inner area. If everyone squeezed in, they would really need to build a huge area. Yi Tianyun did not have that much time, so he just let the participants come in, and the rest of the spectators could watch from the outside. There were also all kinds of illusion stones outside, which could project images to various places, so that everyone could see the scene here. After many disciples arrived, all of them were extremely excited. There was a sea of people here. Because the standard was too low, there were as many as billions of participants. Actually, there were many cultivators who did not participate. They felt that they had no hope, so they did not participate. There were still many who did not have confidence in themselves. If all of them came, there would be as many as 10 billion. The other celestial territories would not do such a large scale. It was not that they could not do it, and they could even do it on a larger scale than this place. But they were too lazy to do so. After all, many of them were not talented or had average comprehensive abilities. What was the point of letting them participate? It was simply a waste of time. Therefore, except for Yi Tianyun, no other force would do such a stupid thing. But Yi Tianyun was so stupid, he wanted to show everyone that he was a cultivator of the three realms divine realm, and he wanted to make everyone pay attention to him. As long as he was a cultivator of the three realms divine realm, he would be treated equally. When the participants arrived, Yi Tianyun slowly descended from the air and sat on the seat in the void. After a group of people saw him, they immediately burst into cheers, and the atmosphere directly exploded. Great Emperor of Heavenly Clouds, Great Emperor of Heavenly Clouds, Great Emperor of Heavenly Clouds. His prestige was officially manifested at this moment. Looking at the group of people below cheering excitedly, even if their throats were hoarse from shouting, they still wanted to shout. Yi Tianyun is the only one who can win the hearts of the people. The other forces disdained the weak to worship them. It was meaningless. Only the strong followed them, and that was what they needed. In their opinion, Yi Tianyun was a fool. Yi Tianyun looked around with a smile on his face. Is this our own force? Are they our own people? Yi Tianyun shook his head. From the original Jade Palace to the current Celestial Territory, it was really an unimaginable thing. The gap was too big. Immediately, he stretched out his hand, and everyone immediately quieted down. Everything was so neat. There was no need for anyone to speak, just a gesture. Chapter 1529. Yi Tianyun looked at the frenzied crowd, his heart pounding. To the powerhouses of the other factions, this was nothing. In fact, they felt that it was normal. To him, this was the process of going from nothing to something. It was very meaningful. How could he not be excited? Seeing that all of you can participate, I am sincerely happy. I know that some did not participate, some did not want to participate, some did not have confidence in themselves, and some did not participate because others said they did not have the right to participate. To these people, I just want to tell them not to be controlled by others, and especially not to be controlled by themselves. If you want to walk the path of Tao, you must follow your heart. As long as you do what you want, that is the true Tao. Yi Tianyun's voice was sonorous and powerful. His seemingly calm tone spread throughout the God realm of the three realms, striking directly at their hearts. All of them were stunned, especially those who did not participate. A ball of fire suddenly ignited in their hearts, and they felt that they really should have participated. But was it too late to participate now? Regret immediately filled their hearts. Why didn't I participate? Why do I feel that I can't do it? Maybe it's because even I feel that I can't do it, that's why I feel that I can't do it. Why was I so stupid? You should go and participate, not stay here. Can I still participate now? I still want to sign up. All of them were ignited by Yi Tianyun's words. They all wanted to participate, some were told too much, and so they did not participate. Some were like Yi Tianyun said, if they did not have confidence in themselves, they would not participate. Just as they were feeling a little unwilling, Yi Tianyun's voice rang out again. I will give you one more chance. Hurry up and participate now, and you will have a chance. Yi Tianyun announced with a smile. After the announcement, the entire God realm of the three realms was in an uproar again. Those who did not participate all rushed over to participate. Whether or not they could be chosen, if they did not even have this bit of courage, how could they achieve great things? This was Yi Tianyun's original intention. Perhaps among so many cultivators, only a small portion could be chosen, perhaps not more than a handful. But if they wanted to participate, it would be an obstacle to their future cultivation. Being able to think clearly was the real key. How could he have a breakthrough if he had been suppressing his depression? Soon, a lot of cultivators rushed over here, and Yi Tianyun's generosity made everyone admire him even more. Some lowered their heads and remained silent, as if their thoughts had been read. These people were the ones who mocked other cultivators. They were worried that Yi Tianyun would be able to see through them and they would lose their qualifications. But how could Yi Tianyun tell? He didn't know how to read minds, so he didn't know what they were thinking. Moreover, even if he knew who had done such a thing, he wouldn't be kicked out, but in his heart, he definitely wouldn't be considered as a candidate for a disciple. Character was very important to him, even more important than talent. For the other forces, moral conduct and personality were not important. Even if they were homicidal maniacs, they would still be heavily nurtured. To Yi Tianyun, none of these were important targets to nurture. Because these people were easy to betray, and even more so, they were easy to stab in the back. What was the point of spending so much effort to nurture them? To help others fatten up? Soon, they all rushed over. The number of people increased by a few 100 million, increasing the number of participants. Seeing them come over, Yi Tianyun was very satisfied. This was the effect he wanted. After waiting for a while, they finally arrived one after another. Those who were supposed to come were all here. Those who didn't come really wouldn't come. Yi Tianyun's words didn't mean that they could move everyone's hearts. Some had low self-esteem and some had physical defects, so they didn't dare to take a step forward. This wasn't something he could control. He was the great emperor here, not a true god. He couldn't make everyone come over. He wanted everyone to come because he wanted to nurture them and pick out the most outstanding disciples. There were many elders and attendants present. Who said that he had to choose disciples? Couldn't the other elders choose disciples? That was why all the experts chose the disciple selection, and not just him. He hadn't announced this yet, so everyone thought that it was just Yi Tianyun choosing disciples. Very good. You all have the courage to come. This proves that you all have limitless potential. Yi Tianyun said with a smile, then let me explain the rules. I won't limit the number of disciples. As long as you meet the standard, I'll take you. If 100 pass, then they'll all be my disciples. If 1,000 pass, then they'll all be my disciples. Not setting a limit on the number of participants shocked them. They had never seen such a generous move before. Normally, experts would choose the best. Not to mention the number, they would choose the top 3. Yi Tianyun was exaggerating. He didn't limit the number of people. However, they weren't too excited. Not limiting the number of people didn't mean that he was recruiting at will. Only God knew how difficult it would be. It would be good if 1 or 2 passed. Next, I'll tell you something motivating. I'm not the only one choosing disciples. Many elders and divine generals will also participate. This means that you all have a higher chance of being chosen. As long as you perform well, you can become an elder or a divine general's disciple. So don't give up easily. Even if you don't meet my standard, it doesn't mean that you can't become their disciple. At this moment, rows of elders and immortal generals were sitting there with smiles on their faces. They felt that this method was really good. Only Yi Tianyun had such appeal. If it were them, they wouldn't have the chance to be selected. Selecting the best disciples was in line with their idea. This is great. This way, even if you don't get chosen by the heavenly cloud's great emperor, you may be chosen by other elders. Yes. In addition to the heavenly cloud's great emperor, I also want to join the martial divine general. In addition to the heavenly cloud's great emperor, I also want to join the dream divine general. One by one, they were even more excited. They didn't expect that there would be an additional choice, which made them even more excited. As long as they were chosen by any elder or divine general, it would be an honor and a chance for them to make a meteoric rise. This was a pleasant surprise. The rest of the elders didn't expect that Tianyun would use this to greatly expand the strength of the heavenly cloud's great emperor. Some divine generals and elders didn't have time to choose disciples, so this was a very good opportunity. Chapter 1530. Tianyun's explanation made everyone's mood even higher, wave after wave of excitement. This was definitely an unexpected surprise. How could they not be happy? It was like thinking that there was only one prize, but suddenly there were hundreds of other prizes. One could imagine the feeling. The more opportunities he had, the greater the chances he had. Therefore, they were even more motivated. At least they wouldn't have to completely complete the trial to become Tianyun's disciple. Some felt that they wouldn't succeed, but if they performed well, they would undoubtedly be noticed by the other elders. Other than that, there are other surprises waiting for you to discover. Tianyun looked at them and smiled. At the same time, everyone quieted down. But the excitement on their faces couldn't be easily suppressed. Then let's begin the trial. My trial is very simple. Tianyun waved his hand and a giant staircase appeared in the air. It came crashing down and quickly filled up the empty space. The staircase was very wide. It took up more than half of the land. It could accommodate hundreds of millions of people at once, or even billions. The further one went, the smaller the staircase became. But no matter how small it was, it could accommodate many people walking at the same time. Although not everyone could go up at once, they could go up in several batches. After all, the first batch of people who had walked up the stairs immediately had empty spots for other cultivators to go up. Such a tall staircase. They were dumbfounded when they saw the staircase reaching into the clouds. It was their first time seeing such a giant staircase. Tianyun just waved his hand and it was all here. Actually, this was all very ordinary. But after Tianyun made it big, it became especially shocking. At the end of the day, this was just a superior grade heavenly Tao treasure. It looked big, but its grade wasn't high. But to them, it was an extremely shocking existence. After all, even superior grade heavenly Tao treasures couldn't be obtained without being at least a divine lord. In the entire three realms, how many divine lords could there be? Apart from some of the divine spirits who had joined in, there was basically no one who had reached this level by themselves. The Lord of Heaven was the highest. Moreover, it was used for cultivators with ordinary cultivations. Naturally, it would have a shocking effect. There was no need for high-grade treasures. As far as the eye could see, among those who participated in this trial, the highest cultivation level was only at the Earth Monarch realm, while the lowest cultivation level was only at the Body Refinement realm. The purpose of the trial is very simple. You only need to climb to the highest level to become my disciple. No matter how many there are, they can all become my disciples. On the contrary, if no one can meet the requirements, then I can only say that I won't even accept a single disciple. Tianyun said indifferently, I will not lower my standards. The standards are here, and they will never change. He had to fix a standard. He wouldn't lower himself just because there were so many people who couldn't reach the peak. He wouldn't do it. Either he met the standard, or he didn't want it. The group of people looked up, but they couldn't see the peak even if they looked up. There were so many steps that they couldn't even count them clearly. The total number of steps is 108,000 steps. Climb to the highest peak, and you can become my disciple. There can't be any fights or disturb others along the way. If you are discovered, you will be expelled from the God domain of the three realms. Tianyun waved his hand and said solemnly, the trial will now officially begin. The rules were that simple, and the trial was also very simple. To put it bluntly, it was to climb the stairs. Tianyun had experienced it so many times that he felt that the best situation to test a person was to climb the stairs in a simple and crude manner. Of course, there were many things involved in climbing the stairs. It wasn't simply climbing the stairs. It was a test of perseverance and Tao heart. The content of the test was that simple. It didn't rely on talent or cultivation level. It was just one's ability. According to the different cultivation levels, there would be different difficulties. Thus, there was no need to worry about unfair situations. His requirement was never about talent. It wasn't in the past, and it wasn't now. Under the command, they seemed to have gone crazy as they rapidly climbed the stairs. They all wanted to prove themselves, and they wanted to see how high they could climb. All of them stared at the highest point, feeling that it was their final destination. After the trial began, Yi Tianyun and the others stayed at the side and watched to see who had the greatest potential. The other elders also stared at them. However, this was just the beginning. Some of them just casually glanced at them and didn't look at them anymore. Instead, they chatted with the people beside them. After all, it was just the beginning. What was there to see? It would only be interesting towards the end. Right now, they couldn't see anything at all. It would only be interesting towards the end. This year's disciple selection competition is really lively. Every time there is a commotion, it can push the God domain of the three realms forward. Even if we fight to the death, we won't even be able to get a push from you. Shi Shuyin shook her head. After knowing the details of Yi Tianyun's plan, she realized that it was a very perfect plan. After the trial ended, they would be able to select a large number of outstanding disciples. After some focus training, they would be able to obtain a large number of mainstays. How could the God domain of the three realms not prosper? Although they usually screened disciples, compared to Yi Tianyun's screening, the difference was too great. Especially when he personally checked, the significance was different. Yi Tianyun's cultivation was the highest. His method would definitely be more outstanding. You're exaggerating. Without all of you to build a good foundation, no matter how much I push, it would be meaningless. Yi Tianyun shook his head. He wouldn't take all the credit. Without a good foundation, everything was nonsense. As time passed, they all climbed up quickly. However, after climbing a few hundred steps, their speed slowed down. They couldn't go any faster even if they wanted to. Some fell into an illusion and couldn't pull themselves out. Some failed. They bounced off the stairs and had to start all over again. Whether they were talented or average, the results were about the same. Tan Tiankong's gaze was firm. He climbed up step by step. His results weren't considered good, but he was very stable. He walked step by step and didn't get bounced off. Over time, he easily surpassed those cultivators who mocked him, and climbed to a higher level of the regional domain. The cultivators who mocked him before were all stunned. A cripple could climb higher than them. Tianyun, that one with an injured leg, is walking really steadily. Shi Shuiyun also noticed Tan Tiankong. Tan Tiankong was in the middle, but his steadiness attracted many people's attention. Chapter 1531. Mentality and perseverance were both very important. If one's mentality was always negative, it was basically impossible for one to have any breakthroughs. Therefore, he had always emphasized this point. Without a good mentality and hard work, even if one had potential, one would not be able to unleash it. If one was immediately depressed and fell into depression, how could one continue? As time passed, many cultivators began to climb to the higher levels, but there was still a big gap. After all, there were a total of 108,000 steps on the stairs, and the one who had climbed to the highest point was only less than 10,000 steps. The cultivators who climbed to the highest level were quite talented. When he saw that he had climbed to the highest level, he was secretly delighted. If he could reach the top, he would definitely attract some attention. This would undoubtedly give him more points. Unexpectedly, no one paid attention to him. Instead, they paid attention to the other cultivators. It was not that he was not eye-catching enough. On the contrary, he was quite eye-catching. However, if they paid attention to him casually, they would see what would happen later. Although he had come first, it was meaningless. This was just the beginning. What was the point of staring at him? If they wanted to watch, they should see if there were other cultivators with potential later on. In the process of climbing, many cultivators immediately sensed a steady stream of energy surging from under their feet to promote their cultivation. This time, they immediately realized what Yi Tianyun was talking about before. What is this little surprise? During the process of the trial, they could increase their cultivation. Not only could it increase their cultivation, but it could also train their souls and bodies. This meant that they could increase their overall strength. It was simply unbelievable. There were so many cultivators. To increase the strength of billions of cultivators at once, how much money did it take? In fact, a lot of energy was needed to provide for so many cultivators to absorb. He would have to rely on the spirit gathering formation around him and the other cores. After a certain connection, this effect could be achieved. This was even done with the help of the divine spirit race from Yi Tianyun. With their nature-defying abilities, they could complete such a large formation. When they found out about this, they were really shocked by Yi Tianyun. To increase their cultivation by hundreds of millions or even billions in one go? Just thinking about it was terrifying. Of course, it could not be continuously increased. There would definitely be a limit. At the same time, the higher one climbed, the better the effect would be. At the beginning, the effect was average. This meant that the more steps they climbed, the stronger they would be. When they sensed it, they were all extremely touched. They were not fools. They all knew what this meant. Usually, cultivation places required all kinds of spirit stones or spirit gathering arrays to increase their cultivation. Now, there were so many cultivators, and all of them could improve. The difficulty was undoubtedly huge. Ding! Congratulations, Yi Tianyun, successfully gathered the faith of 100 million people, gained 10,000 crazy point, 10,000 compression mastery. Ding! Congratulations, Yi Tianyun, successfully gathered the faith of 500 million people, gained 50k compressed crazy point, 50k compressed mastery. Ding! Congratulations to player Yi Tianyun, successfully assembled. Ding! Congratulations to player Yi Tianyun, successfully gathered the faith of 5 billion people, gained 500,000 compressed crazy point, 500,000 compressed mastery, and got the title, God of Faith. God of Faith, a super powerful title that can only be obtained after receiving the worship of 5 billion people. The effect is to gather the power of faith and bless the user. When a certain amount of power of faith is gathered, the user can deal 5 to 100 times more damage. After Yi Tianyun saw it, he almost jumped out of the chair. 5 to 100 times the damage, this is so powerful. Looking carefully, he had an extra faith value. As these cultivators continue to climb and improve themselves, the faith value will increase. When a certain amount of faith value is used, it can burst out more power, very similar to crazy damage mode. Not only the consumption, but also the time limit. The two are similar, the more faith points, the more powerful the effect. The overall situation is that 100 points of faith can burst out 100 times the damage, and it can only last for 1 minute. If it is 5 times, it only needs to consume 5 points, and so on. As for how to get it, it is to maintain the faith in him, pray for him from time to time, and you can increase it. To put it bluntly, he has really become a god in their hearts. Every time they cultivate, they will pray for the heavenly cloud's great emperor to bless them with a breakthrough. It is equivalent to worshipping the gods and Buddhas, and they can get faith value. Points are quite difficult to obtain, it takes time to accumulate and so on. At least now, with so many people believing in him, it is only increasing little by little, and it is very slow. After a long time, it can only increase a few dozen points, it is really quite slow. But it is better than nothing. As long as it continues to increase, it is not a problem to accumulate thousands or even tens of thousands of points. At that time, the burst of 100 times damage can last for a long time. If I use this state, wouldn't it be heaven-defying when the two are stacked? Yi Tianyun's eyes lit up. When the two are stacked, it can reach 220 times damage. Although it can only be used in the three realms God realm, it is enough for him. If he stays here, who would dare to come in? At that time, whoever comes will be killed. He didn't expect the disciple selection to have such a surprise. Originally, he wanted to select disciples and at the same time enhance the comprehensive strength. Who knew that he can also get a special title? It is quite unexpected. Of course, this is not the main point, it is just an addition. This kind of qualitative change is indeed something that Yi Tianyun did not expect. Originally, they worship him, but it is not to the point of faith. After all, many of them have not seen the real person. At most, they worship him, their hearts are filled with respect. Now that this kind of generosity, it immediately makes them go crazy, directly becoming his believers, the degree of their worship increased. What is it? Shi Shuiyun saw Yi Tianyun beaming, she does not know what happened. Nothing, I feel that the disciple selection this time is not bad. Yi Tianyun smiled. He does not know what the criteria to obtain a title is, many of them suddenly appear. Now, it seems that doing these things is really not bad. As long as he continues to develop his faction, there will definitely be rewards. Of course, from now on, your prestige will be even higher. Shi Shuiyun does not know, she thought that Yi Tianyun is happy that so many people support him. Following Yi Tianyun's gaze, groups of people continue to climb up the stairs. He pays special attention to those who usually perform average, or those who are at the bottom. Chapter 1532. As time passed, they rushed up one by one. They did not know how long they had, so they quickly rushed up while it was not over. Especially if they did not fail, no matter how many times they failed, it would not be a problem. They just did not know how long it would take, whether it would be a week or a month. They did not care whether they could succeed or not, they mainly wanted to climb to a higher level, as high as they could. After all, the higher they climbed, the more benefits they would obtain. To put it bluntly, even if no elder chose them, they would continue to climb, treating it as self-cultivation. This kind of opportunity was extremely rare, how could they waste it? Therefore, they took advantage of the fact that it was not over to continue climbing. This kind of positive phenomenon was all good. This made Yi Tianyun very satisfied. Even if there was no chance, it was good to have this kind of mentality. As for the ending time, he really had not thought about it. In any case, when he felt that it could end, he would choose to end. Very quickly, they quickly climbed to 50,000 to 60,000 steps, and had already covered half of the distance. This was a more crucial time. If they failed here, they would have to start all over again. Yi Tianyun's setting was so simple and crude, as long as they failed, they would be bounced off, starting from the starting point. Of course, they would not be seriously injured, they would slowly fall down, and then have to start all over again. Starting all over again, the difficulty would be the same. But with previous experience, the difficulty would be reduced, just that they would have to waste more time. Among them, there were a few who had never failed, and it just so happened that their usual situation was that they belonged to the bottom, the type that people looked down on. For example, Tan Tiankong was one of them, he might not be in the top, but he was definitely the stronger type, at least in the top 100. The same was true for the rest of the bottom, all of them could fight their way to a higher level. Among them, there were also super geniuses, they could also fight their way to the top. The most terrifying thing was not geniuses, but geniuses who had talent and were very hard-working. Among them, there were such people who worked hard to climb up, and their perseverance did not lose to anyone. When Tan Tiankong's parents saw this, they were stunned. Her son, who had been looked down upon in the beginning, limped his way up to a higher level. Previously, no one was optimistic about their child, but now their child could lead all the way. Although he was not in the top 10, to be able to fight his way to the top 100 was enough to shock the people nearby. To be able to fight his way into the top 100 out of so many cultivators, how could this not be shocking? Who said our son is useless? Who dares to say that our son's legs and feet are not nimble? He is useless. Tan Tiankong's mother's face was full of tears, and the eyes of the father next to her were red. All along, their son's shortcomings in this area had been pointed out. How could they not be heartbroken? In order to treat this kind of injury, one would need to have a higher cultivation level or buy bone-replenishing pills, which were both very difficult to obtain. Although the god realm of the three realms was very fair, it did not mean that those who had flaws would be treated. As long as it was not the kind of dying, this kind of situation needed to be treated by oneself. After all, there were so many cultivators. If they were to treat each and every one of them, the three realms' divine territory would suffer a loss. Thus, he used the same old method. If he couldn't even walk, he could still obtain the bone-replenishing pill. As long as they made some contributions, for example, doing something at home, they would still be able to earn contribution points. As for advance payment and the like, this was also possible, but one would have to pay double the price, or even triple the price. Basically, it was equivalent to selling their bodies. This would motivate them to work harder. It seemed inhumane, but it was too ordinary, and it was easy to have an advance payment at will. The three realms' divine territory was not a tycoon-level divine territory. It couldn't distribute everything at will, so maintaining balance was the key. Tan Tiankong's performance really shocked those who looked down on him before, and now they didn't know what to say. Being able to climb to such a high level, even if he failed in the future, it was enough to be proud. Moreover, it was possible that other elders would take a fancy to him. In fact, he was really taken by the divine generals and elders, and they all stared at him. After all, limping up, how could it not attract people's attention? Others didn't limp, but they couldn't climb higher, which was the most annoying thing. His cultivation level is not high, but his ability is good. The Heavenly Cloud's Great Emperor's selection is definitely not wrong. If there is no problem, I will choose him. Bullshit, I have taken a fancy to him before. He should be taught by me, he is definitely suitable for me. No, it should be me who wants him. From the moment he stepped on the stairs, I have already taken a fancy to him. Nonsense, you can eat whatever you want, but you can't say whatever you want. Do you dare to say that you really took a fancy to him as soon as he stepped on the stairs? One by one, the elders quarreled about this, and it was really funny. It wasn't just Tan Tiankong, but the other participants were included in the scope of competition. They didn't know what Yi Tianyun's test was, but they believed that Yi Tianyun's choice was definitely right. Therefore, they chose the best among them. Yi Tianyun watched from the side, the group of people trying to climb up. It was really a spectacular scene. Although there was no competition, the situation was extremely fierce, and everyone rushed up one by one. Especially the group of people in the front row, one was rushing faster than the other, scrambling to grab the first place. The first place was always the most dazzling, and it could attract the attention of trillions of people. Even if they failed later, at least people would remember their face. Honor was the meaning of their existence. Therefore, it was still white-hot, and everyone rushed forward. It was quite shocking. As time passed quickly, a week passed, many people rushed to the 70,000 to 80,000 step, and the number of people who continued to go up was pitifully few. There were billions of cultivators, but those who could really reach this area were less than 1,000 people. As for those who could reach the 80,000 step, there were less than 100 people. Such a huge difference, it was really shocking. Yi Tianyun didn't even need to compete, he just needed to rely on this point, and it was enough for him to choose what he wanted. Perhaps some areas were not comprehensive enough, but his goal was to target this, and the rest could be slowly nurtured. The overall standard is not bad, looks like I can still recruit a few disciples. Yi Tianyun looked at the cultivators in the front row, although they were still quite far away, he could already see part of it. This divine staircase was created by him, so naturally, he knew what the difficulty of the later stages was. Now that it looked like he was going very steadily, the later stages should not be a big problem. Chapter 1533. As the months passed, the further they went, the harder it was to climb. At the later stages, it would be considered pretty good if they could climb 100 steps in a day. Therefore, the difficulty was still extremely high and the time required was slightly longer. Tianyun had already expected this situation. Therefore, he didn't specify a time limit and decided to observe the situation. If the situation was more difficult, then the time limit would be set to be longer, otherwise, it would be shorter. He couldn't keep this place open forever. The consumption was simply too shocking. If this continued, wouldn't the cores that were transferred here be drained dry? No matter what, he had to let these cores rest for a period of time to recover the consumed energy. Otherwise, it wouldn't be beneficial for the cores if they continued to be in deficit. Finally, the first batch of people rushed above the 100,000th step. There were less than 20 people. These were the most outstanding existences, and Tan Tiankong was one of them. Tan Tiankong gritted his teeth and walked up step by step. He felt that he had reached his limit every time, but he stubbornly held on and climbed up. In his opinion, only by working hard would he be able to stand out. He didn't want to continue being mocked, and he didn't want his family to be sad because of him. He wasn't the only one thinking this way. The rest of the participants were thinking the same way. Among the top 20, those with average talent occupied a small portion. In fact, it wasn't that their talent was bad, but their true value wasn't reflected in their talent. Everyone's situation was different, just like other occupations. Pill refinement masters, divine craftsmen, or even divine carving masters had a clear division of labor. There was a clear division of labor. Some tried to become a divine inscription master and failed to become a divine creation master. Some tried to become an alchemist and discovered that they were about to succeed. The most important thing was to find something suitable for themselves. Soon, they will basically be chosen from this batch. Tianyun looked at the roughly 20 people and selected his disciple from them. The audience watched with their hearts tightening. Who would be able to become Tianyun's disciple and obtain this supreme glory? At this point, many people weren't interested in who would be the first to go up, but who would stand at the peak. Even if they failed, they would be frantically recruited and nurtured. To put it bluntly, the elders and divine generals were already watching closely and wouldn't let any of them go. The top 20 cultivators had to be fought over. However, they wouldn't make a move now. Everything would depend on Tianyun's final decision. If some of them caught their eye and successfully passed, then they would have wasted their efforts. Finally, after more than a month, a cultivator successfully reached the top. This cultivator was not a man, but a woman. Who would have thought that the one who reached the top would be a woman? But when everyone saw it, they were so depressed that they wanted to vomit blood. Even Tianyun smiled helplessly. The first to reach first place was none other than Shue. Yes, it was Tianyun's daughter, Shue. It was not against the rules for Shue to climb the divine staircase. As long as she met the requirements, she could participate. But what was the point of her getting first place? Even if they managed to reach the peak, they would be personally taught by Tianyun, and he would teach them everything. If he didn't impart it to his own daughter, who else could he impart it to? I'm first. Shue made a victory gesture to Tianyun, and then flew over from the air and sat on the seat next to him. Tianyun shook his head and said, "This little girl, I knew she would be the first to reach the top." It seemed like he was blaming her, but it was actually full of love. This made him very satisfied. His daughter could reach the standard, which meant that she worked very hard. It didn't mean that she could easily reach the top by practicing his martial arts. There was no relationship between the two. But as for what other people think, that's their business. Soon, someone successfully reached the top, and became the second woman. And it was a female cultivator. This time, the female cultivator happened to be the direct disciple of the internal elder. Her talent was quite good, and she worked very hard. This time, 2 women succeeded in reaching the top in a row, and most of the male cultivators were defeated. If you look closely, it's really more women than men. Among the top 20, there were more than a dozen women, which is really exaggerated. But this is normal. Don't forget what the situation of the 3 realms divine realm was. It was Jade Palace that started with female cultivators. Therefore, in this aspect, they were more focused on training, and more strict. In the case that women are generally not as good as men, they will work harder and work harder. Now that they have such achievements, it's not surprising. Just when many male cultivators felt ashamed, a male cultivator finally reached the top. He became the 3rd person to reach the top, which made them heave a sigh of relief. Finally, a male cultivator succeeded, and there won't be a situation where no one can reach the top anymore. This male cultivator's talent is not bad, and his cultivation is at Spirit King stage, which is not very strong. After a period of time, another woman reached the top. Her cultivation is also on the low side, which is the Spirit King stage. In the audience, most of the people who reach the top are basically not the Earth Monarch stage, or the Lord of Heaven stage. On the contrary, it's the lower the cultivation, which shocked them. Could it be that the lower the cultivation, the lower the difficulty? The answer is yes, the lower the cultivation, the lower the standard for Yi Tianyun. Correspondingly, with such a low cultivation, to achieve such amazing perseverance and ability, it is definitely far beyond the existence of the peers. In this case, the potential is still not big. Therefore, Yi Tianyun has his own standards, and it depends on their own performance. Soon, another male cultivator reached the top, and he is Tan Tiankong. A man with weak legs actually reached the top. I climbed up. When Tan Tiankong climbed up, tears immediately gushed out, turned his head and looked behind him, and saw a group of people below, big and small like ants. It is to verify his name, Tiankong. He really stood at the highest peak, looking down on all those who looked down on him, and he succeeded. If there is anyone who shocked the most, it is Tan Tiankong. He wasn't in first place, but his performance had shocked everyone to the core. The lame one beat all the non-lame ones. At this time, Shi Shuoyan recalled what Yi Tianyun said before, a lame foot but not a lame heart. This is the reason why he succeeded. I know he can reach the top. Yi Tianyun smiled slightly. He is not too surprised that Tan Tiankong can climb up to the top. There were a lot of things that he could see from the very beginning. Chapter 1534. In the latest batch, 5 people had reached the summit, and only 4 had succeeded. These 4 had welcomed the greatest glory, becoming Yi Tianyun's personal disciples. Among them, there were 2 men and 2 women. This combination was very harmonious, and there was no situation where there were more women than men. However, no one knew how many people would become Yi Tianyun's disciples until the end. After all, the trial was still ongoing. Although it looked balanced, it was indeed not very harmonious in the situation where men were superior to women. It was still unexpected. To other factions, this was very inconceivable. The resources occupied by female cultivators were definitely far inferior to that of male cultivators. Under such circumstances, how could they surpass male cultivators? Therefore, the 3 realms divine realm had another special feature, and that was that men and women had equal resources. There would be no disparity in resources. Now, it was ruthlessly proven that women could still hold up half the sky. The 4 people who passed were all very excited. They all wondered if they were dreaming. Even so, they still managed to pass successfully. As time passed, it was rather difficult to reach the summit. Some were still dozens of steps away from reaching the summit, but they ended in failure. They were bounced off from high places and had to start from the beginning. It was not like before, where several people could reach the summit. It was like the beginning of the highest level of difficulty. In fact, the difficulty did not change. It was just that their standards were still lacking a little to reach the summit. Finally, after 3 months, Tianyun waved his hand, and the steps quickly dimmed. The divine light on them disappeared, and they returned to their original state. Everything returned to normal. At the same time, they did not feel any pressure at all, nor did they feel any energy coming up from beneath their feet. This meant that the trial was over. They had not succeeded in reaching the summit. The trial is over. There are 4 people who have been selected. They are Xian Chunlan, Hua Yuanlong, Jian Miaozhen, and Tan Tiankong. Among them, Yi Xishue is not considered my disciple. Everyone knows the reason. Yi Tianyun smiled and announced the final results. After hearing this, everyone started cheering. Some were envious, while others were jealous. In the end, there were only 5 people who could reach the top. 4 of them could become Yi Tianyun's disciples. Among the 4, 2 of them had average talents, and they were the kind that people talked about every day. They were Tan Tiankong and Jian Miaozhen. Even if the 2 of them were a pair, the talent they displayed was relatively poor. It took a lot of hard work to climb to this level of cultivation. It was really difficult. Most of the people of the same age had cultivation levels that surpassed them. This was the most painful part. When their names were called, all 4 of them shed tears. Perhaps the other 2 were quite talented, but to be chosen as a disciple, Zhang Xian was extremely touched. He felt that his efforts had not been in vain. The rest of the elders and god generals began to select the disciples they had chosen. They had their eyes on someone long ago, so they quickly picked them out. This was probably the first time such a grand disciple recruitment event had ever been held. They all succeeded in finding disciples that they were satisfied with, and in a short while, hundreds or even thousands of people were chosen. However, only a small group of people were selected to be personal disciples. However, it didn't mean that the people who were ranked below 1,000 would not be selected. Some of them were still selected to become disciples of various areas. For example, inner disciples, core disciples, and so on, as long as they met the criteria, they could choose to enter. However, compared to the number of cultivators, there was still a big gap. There were billions of people, but in the end, it was estimated that no more than 100,000 people were selected. This ratio was really amazing. Those who were not selected were indeed very disappointed, but they also gained a lot this time. Not only did they see Yi Tianyun, but they also improved their cultivation, which was a very good ending. When everyone felt very satisfied, someone stood up. Heavenly Cloud's Great Emperor, we are not convinced. Yes, Heavenly Cloud's Great Emperor, we are not convinced. A group of people came out, and their faces were full of dissatisfaction. Moreover, the number of people in this group was not small. There were tens of thousands of people in a random list. Originally, there were a small number of people who were dissatisfied, but they probably resonated with them and came out one after another. After the rest of the elders saw this, they were very dissatisfied, and when they wanted to say something to let them go back, Yi Tianyun reached out his hand and signaled them not to speak. What is there to be dissatisfied about? Yi Tianyun said indifferently. Xian Chunlan and Hua Yuanlong are both amazing talents, and their usual performance is very good. We are very dissatisfied that they can reach the top. But why can Tan Tiankong and Jian Miaozhen successfully reach the top? We are not convinced about this. The most important thing is that the content of this assessment is to climb the stairs. We can all feel the mystery, but everything is about fighting. We didn't show our strength here, so we are very dissatisfied. They had always been convinced by whoever had the strongest battle prowess. But now, they didn't need to fight, they just climbed the stairs, and they could become Yi Tianyun's disciple, so of course they were not convinced. The main reason was that their usual performance was too mediocre, and there were no highlights. Xian Chunlan and Hua Yuanlong were usually amazing, so they didn't need to compete to know that they were not weak, so they agreed that they had such achievements. It's normal for you to have this kind of thinking. Yi Tianyun didn't feel angry at all. When he set up this assessment previously, he knew that there would be people who would be puzzled. How could one be selected as a disciple by climbing the stairs? In the past, the selection of disciples was mainly based on fighting. Whoever could win in the end could become a disciple. It was simple and crude, and the selection was often very accurate. After all, how could they be weak after killing their way out of so many people? On this flight of stairs, any rich combat experience was meaningless. All kinds of martial arts or abilities were meaningless here. Maybe if they wanted to go up, they needed perseverance, and they also needed to break the illusion, but to them, it was still not enough. The strongest fist was the hard truth. I'll give you a few simple pointers on the principle. Their usual performance is not good, mainly because their potential has not been stimulated. If you want them to show their outstanding strength, the usual method won't work for them. Yi Tianyun said indifferently, later, I'll help them improve a little, and then I'll show you my true strength. At that time, you will know what the gap is. There are no truly useless people, only wrong methods. Chapter 1535. Immediately, Yi Tianyun took Tan Tiankong and Jian Miaozhen away, and after a few days, he brought them back. When they came back, they were the center of attention, and everyone's eyes were focused on them. They wanted to see if there was any change in them. Since Yi Tianyun took them away, they must have undergone secret special training. Maybe they had a breakthrough in their cultivation. In fact, there was no change at all. Their cultivation level was still the same. Tan Tiankong was still in core condensation stage, and Jian Miaozhen was still in spirit king stage. Not to mention their cultivation level, they didn't change at all. Whether it was their equipment or temperament, it felt like they just went out for a walk and then came back. There was no difference. Everyone looked at each other, and they didn't know what was going on. Heavenly Cloud's great emperor, do you really want to do this? Their attitude is too rude. The elder next to him was very dissatisfied with this group of disciples who questioned Yi Tianyun. Yi Tianyun's way of doing things, how can you let them criticize him? Was Yi Tianyun's approach wrong all along? The elder didn't have such a thought. Or maybe it's a matter of realm, they all can see what kind of disciple Yi Tianyun chose. They had a deeper understanding, and they felt that the disciples in this area had great potential. Some disciples were indeed poor, but with strong perseverance, given more time, they could still become a very strong expert. In the end, this was to strive for stability, not to soar to the sky. This was the type of disciple that Yi Tianyun chose. He didn't want to soar to the sky, he just wanted to be stable and steady. Some disciples became more arrogant as they grew, and it was very likely that they would limit their own development. There is no need to say more about this matter. Your realm is different, and your views are different. Now that there are so many people watching, if you don't show your level, you won't be able to convince the public. Yi Tianyun said indifferently. I am not a real god, and I can't make everyone absolutely trust me, especially this kind of special people. They were quite obedient to Yi Tianyun's orders, and even if he asked them to die, they wouldn't hesitate. They worshipped him very much, and there was nothing wrong with that. However, it did not mean that everyone could achieve absolute trust. Especially when something that they could not understand appeared, they would have some doubts. Of course, putting aside these suspicions, it wasn't a problem for them to fight with all their might. After all, the two of them were of different types. They had to be completely resolved. Shortly after, Yi Tianyun looked at them and said, I've already told them to get ready. Since you guys like to fight, then let's focus on fighting. I believe everyone can see that Tan Tiankong's cultivation is at the 5th level of core condensation, which belongs to the middle level. As for the opponents, as long as they are below the core condensation stage, they can challenge us without any restrictions. At the end of the day, it's just a battle of a higher level. As long as your cultivation is not higher than core condensation stage, you can fight on the stage. As long as you defeat him, you can become my direct disciple. After Yi Tianyun made the announcement, the crowd was in an uproar. It was one thing to fight someone of a higher cultivation level, but the injury on his leg hadn't even recovered yet, and he could still fight someone of a higher cultivation level? Climbing stairs was not a competition. The two were different. His legs were not nimble when climbing stairs, so he could take it slow. But could he take it slow in a fight? If he was half a beat slower, he would immediately die. However, Yi Tianyun's words really stimulated them. As long as they defeated Tan Tiankong, they could become Yi Tianyun's direct disciple. How could they not be excited? This time, they finally felt balanced in their hearts. As long as they defeated Tan Tiankong, they could have the opportunity to become Yi Tianyun's disciple. Immediately, Tan Tiankong jumped down and landed on the stage. Holding a long stick in his hand, he looked at the crowd coldly and said, "Who's first?" Many of the cultivators below immediately reacted and quickly jumped up and said, "I'll go first." The one who came up was a 7th level of core condensation stage disciple. After he went up, the disciples below were filled with regret. They didn't expect that they would be half a beat slower. "It's over, this kid is going to get it, alas, such a good spot, it's gone." Their faces were filled with unwillingness. They hesitated for half a beat before they were snatched by someone else. Now, the disciple position was going to be handed over to someone else. They all felt that Tan Tiankong would lose without a doubt. His leg injury is still there, his cultivation hasn't improved, and his equipment hasn't changed. Although it's a bit unfair, but in order to become Yi Tianyun's disciple, they are ready to go all out. As the two of them confronted each other, Tan Tiankong's opponent looked at him and said with a smile, "Brother Tan, please advise me. But my cultivation is higher than yours, I can let you attack first." "No need, I'll defend the ring, you attack." Tan Tiankong's expression was indifferent, indicating his opponent to attack first. His opponent was startled, and immediately smiled and said, "If that's the case, then I won't be polite." He definitely won't be polite, he must win, how can he lose? Immediately, he pulled out his sword and fiercely attacked. His sword technique was like a flower, rolling up several sword flowers in the air, and directly attacked Tan Tiankong. He didn't aim at Tan Tiankong's foot injury, it's a very direct attack. Tan Tiankong didn't move. When the attack was about to hit him, suddenly, his other normal foot moved to the side, and very flexibly dodged to the side, and fiercely smashed his long stick. Bang! The opponent was directly sent flying by the rod, and rolled out of the battling platform. The originally noisy noise suddenly turned into a deathly silence. They saw that Tan Tiankong was very agile, even if he was on one foot, he could still be so agile. The degree of agility far exceeded their usual performance. This caused them to be stunned. They thought that he would dodge slowly, or it would be inconvenient for him to dodge. Who would have thought that he would be so nimble? The injured foot didn't move at all, and completely exploded with one foot. Not bad, not bad. Yi Tianyun smiled slightly, he has an injury on one foot, and is not nimble enough, so he will put all his strength into his other foot, and at the same time, constantly hone his fighting with one foot. The degree of agility is definitely not inferior to that of a normal foot. Shi Xuan, who was at the side, nodded. The more flaws there were, the more astonishing the degree of effort. Others had 2 normal feet, but he only had 1, so he constantly honed his one foot, how to become nimble, how to dodge. This kind of effort was undoubtedly even greater, and the reward was even less. But he did it, and was even able to kill his opponent in one move. I've succeeded. Tan Tiankong gripped his long rod tightly, and let out a long roar towards the sky. He had never fought with others, saying that his opponent didn't have the qualifications, was actually because he didn't have confidence in himself. Chapter 1536. Tan Tiankong's performance made them stunned, they didn't expect him to have such a fighting style, the flexibility of his body is far beyond their imagination. Next. Tan Tiankong was in high spirits and motioned the next person to come up to fight. Then the next person immediately jumped up. This time his cultivation level is a little higher, 8th level core condensation, 3 levels higher than him. You are quite flexible. It's true that people can't react for a while, but this is the end. When they knew Tan Tiankong's situation, they immediately did not dare to be negligent. At the same time, they will not be attacked by him. Don't talk nonsense, attack. Tan Tiankong is still clenching the long stick, motioning the opponent to attack. Well, as you wish. He doesn't care about anything, since Tan Tiankong said so, he will not be polite. Then he waved his long sword to attack. This time compared to the previous cultivator, he is a bit more vigilant. He is staring at Tan Tiankong's movement. He doesn't believe that his normal feet can't be compared to someone with only one foot. Xiao xiao xiao. Under the fierce attack, Tan Tiankong constantly dodged. No matter how fast the opponent is, he can easily avoid it. Then he waved the long stick to counterattack. The continuous fierce attack forced the opponent to retreat a few steps. Bang! Under the long stick attack, the opponent was bounced back a step. Tan Tiankong's foot is not very agile, slammed on the ground and stabbed in a straight line. Boom! The opponent was hit by this long stick, directly flew out and rolled out of the battle stage. He once again showed a perfect performance, perfect defense, and perfect flexibility. The other foot is not very agile, although he can't run at will, but when he steps on the ground, he still has a certain explosive power. This is something they didn't think of. They all thought that he can only rely on one foot to dodge. Who can think that he can also attack? After winning again, everyone was shocked. He won 2 games in a row, and it's the type of crushing. This is far beyond their expectations. It is simply unimaginable. 1 foot, can he be so powerful? This is our child is too powerful. Tan Tiankong's parents cheered. They were a little worried, but now it seems that it is unnecessary. Tan Tiankong's performance was absolutely beyond their expectations. This time, many people had a whole new level of respect for Tan Tiankong. Who would have thought that his performance would be so shocking? He had thought that he would be defeated in the first match. Who would have thought that he would win 2 matches in a row, and with such ease? Next. Tan Tiankong looked at them, his gaze extremely firm. Soon, a challenger jumped on the stage. His cultivation level was higher than the previous challenger. He was at level 9 core condensation stage. His cultivation kept stacking up, getting higher and higher. It wasn't easy to fight someone of a higher cultivation level than him in the first place. Now that his legs weren't nimble enough, how could he continue to win? The answer was certain. In the end, Tan Tiankong still won. There was no gorgeous technique, just a very normal martial art, and a very flexible movement technique. Just like that, he won this round. Following that, he continued to fight a few more rounds. Tan Tiankong won all of them perfectly. Sometimes, when he thought he was going to lose, Tan Tiankong still won. In the end, he won 10 matches in a row. In each match, his opponent was at least at the 5th level of core condensation, and the highest level was at the peak of core condensation. Even though he was able to fight against someone of a higher cultivation level, he still won. The key was that Tan Tiankong did not rest, and fought 10 consecutive battles. However, he wasn't made of iron, and he still got tired. He was already sweating profusely, and the sweat flowed down his feet all over the ground, which looked very exaggerated. Hu. Tan Tiankong gasped for breath. He took a break for the time being, and he didn't dare to say the next one directly. At this time, the audience was shocked, and they didn't know what to say. Tan Tiankong's performance was really heaven-defying. If he won once or twice, it could be considered as a victory with skills, but now he won so many matches in a row, which represented his amazing strength. This kid's foundation is too strong, and his physical strength is even more amazing, far beyond his peers. Yes, his foundation is too solid. His cultivation level may be lower than some of his peers, but his foundation is very solid. Even if he faces his peers, he can still win. No wonder the heavenly cloud's great emperor is not afraid. With this foundation, in the future, if he uses the right method to cultivate, won't he advance by leaps and bounds? Foundation is very important, and only with a solid foundation can one soar to the sky. Without a good foundation, it will be easy to collapse in the end. Those with strong cultivation level naturally know, and those with weak cultivation level can't see it. But even if they tried their best to explain, it would be meaningless. In the eyes of most cultivators, they can't wait to break through to a higher level tomorrow, so how could they honestly lay a solid foundation? Tan Tiankong's foundation shocked everyone. Fighting above cultivation level is not a dream, but a reality. Those who originally looked down on Tan Tiankong were now shocked. They thought that bringing Tan Tiankong would be a burden. But now it seems that when there is a real problem, they will become a burden. Next. After a short break, Tan Tiankong signaled them to continue to fight. Then another cultivator went up to challenge, and needless to say, Tan Tiankong won. After winning several more matches in a row, he almost collapsed again. After winning so many matches in a row, his cultivation level is not weak, and his overall strength is not bad, but he can still show such amazing strength. After a little rest, when Tan Tiankong wanted to challenge again, Yi Tianyun raised his hand and said in a deep voice, "There is no need to fight, I believe everyone has seen Tan Tiankong's level, and you all know it in your heart. If we continue to fight, it will not make much sense. We are convinced of this." They all admitted that although there are still many people who haven't challenged, but they think that their strength is not as good as the previous losers. In that case, how can they not agree? Well, Tan Tiankong, come back and rest, Jian Miaozhen, come and defend the ring. Yi Tianyun signaled Jian Miaozhen to go to the ring. Yes. Jian Miaozhen held a long sword in her hand and flew to the ring. Jian Miaozhen's appearance is ordinary, cultivation is ordinary, talent is ordinary, everything is so ordinary. The cultivation of the same age as her has already reached the Saint King stage, or even the Star Monarch stage. But her cultivation is at the Spirit King stage, it is really too slow, it is simply at the bottom level. But she succeeded, standing out among so many people, which made many people feel incredible. Old rules, anyone below the Spirit King stage can challenge. Yi Tianyun waved his hand, indicating that they can continue to fight. Chapter 1537. Jian Miaozhen looked very ordinary, and many of the cultivators in the arena felt that they could win against her, but none of them knew what she was capable of, so they weren't afraid of her. Immediately, a cultivator at the 5th layer of Spirit King stage rushed onto the stage. Jian Miaozhen's cultivation was only at the 3rd layer of Spirit King stage, so she wasn't that strong. Everyone looked at her from top to bottom, but they couldn't see any advantage in her. She wasn't like Tan Tiankong, whose legs and feet were weak, but he still practiced hard to train his legs. "I hope you don't mind if I use too much strength," the cultivator who came onto the stage said with an apologetic smile. In his opinion, Jian Miaozhen was bound to lose, and it would only take a few moves at most. "Go ahead, I won't mind," Jian Miaozhen said with an indifferent expression. Unfortunately, she wasn't a beauty, so she didn't look like a cold beauty. "Then I won't be polite." Naturally, the opponent would not be courteous. He immediately launched an all-out attack without holding anything back. After witnessing Tan Tiankong's strength, even if he thought that he could win, he couldn't take it lightly. If he lost, he would really miss the opportunity, and he didn't want to waste this opportunity. After all, this was the only chance for him to become Yi Tianyun's disciple, so he couldn't afford to lose. But just as he rushed forward, Jian Miaozhen looked at him indifferently, and the opponent directly knelt on the ground. Then, she flew over and kicked the opponent away. Everyone was dumbfounded, and they didn't know what happened, but the opponent lost just like that? Suddenly, the opponent fell to the ground, and they didn't know what happened. What's going on? Is that guy possessed? No, I think he was too excited, and he thought that he would win, but who knew that he would fall to the ground? Isn't this too absurd? He's just like a fool. They all felt that it was unbelievable, and they didn't know what happened, but it was already over. Next. Jian Miaojin said with an indifferent expression, as if nothing happened. I'll go next. Soon, someone reacted and quickly jumped onto the stage, and his expression became extremely cautious. He looked at Jian Miaojin from top to bottom, but he couldn't figure out anything. Miss Jian, I'm sorry. After watching for a short while, he immediately launched an attack. His swift and fierce attack was even stronger than before. However, the result was the same. He had only just charged forward when he fell to his knees. In the end, Jian Miaojin sent him flying with a kick, ending the duel. What's going on? It's an illusion. It's definitely an illusion type. It's a mental attack. As long as you look into her eyes, you'll fall for it immediately. Now that I think about it, some mental attacks have this effect. I didn't expect her to have such a trick up her sleeve. They immediately came to their senses. It wasn't that their opponents had gone crazy, it was Jian Miaojin's familiarity with mental attacks that caused them to lose before they could even get close to her. Let me do it. I'm not afraid of mental attacks. Soon, more cultivators came up. Some of them had strong resistance in this aspect and could resist mental attacks. But the result didn't change. They still looked at each other and were defeated. Don't look at her eyes. As long as you don't make eye contact with her, you'll be fine. Following that, the next cultivator indeed didn't make eye contact with her. But the result was the same. He was still knocked out by her terrifying mental attack and easily defeated. Next. Jian Miaojin's expression was still calm. She didn't look happy or sad. Everything was so calm. This time, they were all dumbfounded. One would fall for it even if they didn't look at each other. Even so, the challengers were still endless. But the result was the same. No matter how many came, they would lose. Not many could touch her, not even the corner of her clothes. The heaven-defying mental attack made them all dumbfounded. How were they supposed to fight? Indeed, there was no way to fight at all. They were completely crushed. Compared to Tan Tiankong, this person was even more domineering. He didn't even get within 10 meters of her and had already lost completely. This time, no one dared to go up. Even before Yi Tianyun announced that there was no need to continue the duel, no one dared to go up. Because dozens of people went up consecutively and were all instantly defeated. So who dared to go up? They would be cannon fodder if they went up. They couldn't afford to lose face. Next. When Jian Miaojin saw that no one came up, she said indifferently. But now, no one dared to come up. They looked at each other and stayed down. It seems that no one wants to come up and challenge her. Is everyone convinced of her strength? Yi Tianyun said with a smile. Jian Miaojin's performance didn't exceed his expectations. She was fast, accurate, and ruthless. She easily defeated the same level of existence. Because Jian Miaojin's mental power in this aspect was really far beyond others. It was simply heaven-defying. If they wanted to compete with her, they would have to be at the same level as Zhou Lingyun. To put it bluntly, she was a super genius, a genius of mental power. We lost, but Heavenly Cloud's great emperor, didn't you take them to cultivate in seclusion for a period of time? It's not fair. They still felt a little unconvinced. Although they won, they still felt a little upset. Yi Tianyun took them for a few days, he must have taught them something, otherwise, how could there be such a change? Tan Tiankong, tell them about the situation in the past few days. Yi Tianyun said. In the past few days, the area that Heavenly Cloud's great emperor took me to was actually a very ordinary seclusion place. He told me to meditate for a few days and consolidate the results of these days, and then came out to compete. Tan Tiankong said indifferently. If I lied, I will be struck by lightning and die a horrible death. Tan Tiankong's words shocked them. Was it that simple? But the truth was that simple. Tianyun really didn't teach him anything, he just told him to meditate in seclusion. It was too noisy here, which was not conducive to seclusion, so naturally, he took him away. Jian Miaozhen, tell us about your situation. Tianyun said. Jian Miaozhen stood up and said in a calm tone, I was also taken to seclusion, but Heavenly Cloud's great emperor taught me a spiritual attack method. This spiritual attack method is actually the spiritual cultivation method that Saintess Milady opened to the public. As long as you have a certain amount of contribution points, you can exchange for it. Other than that, there is nothing else. Everyone was shocked. Jian Miaozhen's spiritual cultivation method was, to put it bluntly, it could be exchanged as long as you have a certain amount of contribution points. Chapter 1538. I didn't specifically teach them anything, nor did I change anything. I also didn't provide any special martial arts or special treasures. Only Jian Miaozhen, I gave some pointers to let her cultivate the spiritual method. Originally, this cultivation method was the most suitable for her. Who knew that she would always walk the wrong path, leading to misunderstandings? Her spiritual power is extremely shocking, like an unopened treasure trove. With a little bit of manipulation, she can erupt with endless power. Tianyun looked at them and said in a deep voice, a person with an amazing foundation and extraordinary perseverance can reach the top. He has paid a much higher price than you all. You have been comfortable here for too long, leading to this situation. The other is a cultivation mistake, which means that the cultivation method is very important, and the guide is even more important. I don't need to do anything, just give some pointers, and she can perform at her level. The two of them have a common characteristic, which is that their willpower is strong enough, and their spiritual power is amazing. That's the one I want. It can be said that those who can climb to the top have good spiritual power, which means that their soul is not bad. The strength of the soul is very important. In the future, it can ensure that it is difficult for you to go berserk, and you can easily resist the inner demons of the heavenly tribulation. If the foundation is not solid, it is easy to fail. If the soul is too weak, it is easy to go berserk. These 2 points are the main points of my test. To me, nothing is more important than these 2 points. No matter how strong you are in battle, a little heavenly tribulation will turn you into ashes. If your cultivation is not solid enough, even if you break through several levels, you will still be abused. Tianyun tried his best to convince them. This was his final goal, to let them know what the real test was. Indeed, actual combat was very important. But before actual combat, if they didn't even have this, the battle would definitely be lost. For example, those who were proud of their cultivation, in front of a spiritual attack, could not withstand a single blow. For a moment, everyone was silent, especially those who were against him. The silence was terrifying. Thinking about how they doubted Tianyun's idea, they were really ashamed. Thinking about it carefully, if they could successfully refute, they would have long been great emperors, and not Tianyun, the real great emperor. Tan Tiankong, you go and fight with Jian Miaozhen. Just simply feel the spiritual impact. Tianyun signaled Tan Tiankong to go down and perform. Yes. Tan Tiankong quickly jumped down and came in front of Jian Miaozhen. He cupped his hands, indicating that they could start. Jian Miaozhen didn't waste any time. Instead, her eyes flashed as waves of formless spiritual energy smashed into Tan Tiankong's head. After Tan Tiankong was bombarded once, he took a few steps back. His forehead was already dripping with cold sweat. At the same time, he shook his head, trying to shake off the feeling of fainting. Again. Tan Tiankong said in a deep voice. Jian Miaozhen nodded and once again launched a spiritual attack, repelling Tan Tiankong a few steps back. Tan Tiankong looked very uncomfortable, but he did not faint. Instead, he was still able to persevere. In the case of dealing with Spirit King stage experts, Jian Miaozhen could kill them in one hit, but against Tan Tiankong, she couldn't even stun him twice in a row. Yi Tianyun asked the two of them to fight because he wanted to verify what he said before. Those who can climb to the top must have two abilities. It's not that Tan Tiankong can cultivate spiritual attack, but like Jian Miaozhen, everyone's cultivation method is different, and Tan Tiankong is indeed not suitable to cultivate spiritual attack technique. After seeing this scene, the Spirit King stage experts felt ashamed. They were at the Spirit King stage, but they couldn't even defeat a core condensation cultivator. With just a casual move, they were immediately convinced and didn't dare to ask any more questions. That's about it, you two can go back and rest. Yi Tianyun smiled faintly. He has explained everything. As for the other two disciples, they don't need to prove anything. Since they are better than the two of them, what else do they need to prove? Moreover, their reputation is excellent, so they don't need to prove anything. I don't know who else has an opinion. I am very willing to listen to everyone's opinions. Not only can you solve your doubts, but you can also improve our ideas. Yi Tianyun is very generous, so it's normal to have different doubts. There are so many people, it's impossible for them to have the same idea. We were too ignorant to ask such a stupid question. We shouldn't have questioned the Heavenly Cloud's great emperor's ideas. One by one, they fell to the ground and felt extremely ashamed of their actions. You are young and full of confidence, so it's normal for you to have such thoughts. This is just one of the stages, and there is no problem. You must learn to not be arrogant and impatient in order to move forward steadily. Yi Tianyun said. All the cultivators in the three realms' divine domain saw this scene, and their worship towards Yi Tianyun skyrocketed. So many cultivators have never seen Yi Tianyun before, but now they finally see him. He didn't show his skills, but his teaching ability is extremely amazing. The selected disciples are extremely strong, and they are not mediocre. Originally, they seemed to be ordinary or at the bottom of the list, but with a little guidance, they found that the method was wrong. Such a mentor is what they need. The disciple selection trial had finally come to an end. After that, they all left one after another, returning to their own places to properly cultivate. Many people are still reluctant to leave, and some want to continue to climb this divine ladder and continue to comprehend themselves. Here is an announcement. This divine ladder will always exist, and it will be held once every 50 years. Of course, I may not come to host it myself, but the elders and divine generals will continue to choose disciples. Therefore, if you want to continue the trial, cultivate well and you can climb higher. After the news was announced, it immediately attracted a burst of cheers. They thought that it would only be held once, but it seems that it will continue. How can they not be excited? Next time, I must participate, no matter what. I regret it, why didn't I participate? It turns out that what is needed is not necessarily talent, the Heavenly Cloud's great emperor is indeed the Heavenly Cloud's great emperor. It seems that I have been inferior for too long. One by one, those who didn't participate, regretted it. However, they have already decided to participate next time. Even if Yi Tianyun doesn't personally choose disciples, it will still be a huge selection of disciples. Chapter 1539. The disciple selection trial was finally over. Yi Tianyun asked the 4 disciples to come in front of him, while Yi Sishua giggled at the side. Daddy, am I not considered your disciple? Yi Sishua asked with a smile. Nope. Yi Tianyun waved his hand and said snappily, what do you want that I won't give? Do you still need to be my disciple? Yi Sishua smiled sweetly and said, hee hee, then I'll go out to play with Sister Tsuetsue. You guys have to work hard and don't let Daddy down. After saying that, she went out to play with Tsuetsue. After Tsuetsue was released, she often played with Yi Sishua. She did not look like the manager of the herb garden at all. After Yi Sishua left, Yi Tianyun shook his head helplessly. He looked at the 4 disciples sitting in front of him, each more serious than the last. In fact, their hearts were filled with incomparable pressure. To be able to become Yi Tianyun's disciple was naturally an honor, but at the same time, the pressure was also great. Especially what Yi Sishue said just now, it was to not let them down. They were afraid that they would let Yi Tianyun down. Yi Tianyun had always been a legendary existence. It would not be easy to catch up to him. The goal that he had set would not be simple either. Don't be so nervous, just relax. Yi Tianyun signaled them not to be too nervous. He knew what these disciples were thinking, so he naturally knew how to deal with it. Although that was the case, they did not dare to completely relax. They still maintained a straight face and were extremely serious. Yi Tianyun knew that it was not easy to change the situation. He said with a faint smile, "Master's requirements for you guys are not too high. I'm not saying that you guys have to reach a certain level. I've never said that. You guys have to follow your own heart to cultivate your own Tao. I'm just here to assist you, to help you organize a little. I believe you guys know that Master rarely stays here, so I won't be guiding you guys all the time. However, I will arrange for other people. If you have any doubts, you can go and ask them. Now, I'll teach you what I should teach you first." Following this, Yi Tianyun handed them various treasures and martial arts that were suitable for them. Indeed, Yi Tianyun didn't have much time to stay here and give pointers. Even his own daughter couldn't enjoy such treatment, let alone them. Now that he was a little free, he would choose disciples to train. After a while, he would leave. After receiving these martial arts, they casually sensed them and were shocked by their contents. Compared to what Xiaoqun had learned, it was much stronger. This included the cultivation method of the 10 refinements Earth Monarch. Both of your cultivations have already reached the Earth Monarch realm. You've both heard of the 9 refinements Earth Monarch, but you've never heard of the 10 refinements Earth Monarch, right? Yi Tianyun smiled faintly, and his aura surged. 10 heavenly Tao chains appeared behind him. The immense pressure made the two of them want to kneel, but it only lasted for an instant before disappearing without a trace. The two of them were stunned. All along, they had only heard of Earth Monarch Zhou Yan. It was recorded in the books. Yi Tianyun's situation was beyond their imagination. Yes, yes. They seemed to have turned into wood, and their expressions were dull. Tan Tiankong and the others hadn't cultivated to the Earth Monarch realm, so they didn't know the situation. They weren't that shocked, and could only feel that it was very strong. I've already listed out the detailed method for you. It's very difficult to break through, but since you can pass my trial, it's all suitable for cultivation. It's just that the difficulty is still very high. If you want to break through to the 10 refinements Earth Monarch realm, inform me first and let me come back to protect you. Yi Tianyun flicked his hand, and 2 jade pendants landed in their hands. He said solemnly, "When you want to break through, crush this jade pendant. When I come back, I'll evaluate it and decide if you can break through." "Yes, Master." The two of them were extremely excited. It seemed that Yi Tianyun still valued them very much. He would even come back to protect them personally. This matter was very important. Yi Tianyun would definitely come back to protect them personally. Not only could the two of them break through to the 10 refinements Earth Monarch realm, even Tan Tiankong and the others could break through. When he set up this divine staircase, he listed the condition of physique. If they wanted to successfully ascend to the top, the condition of their physique definitely had to meet the standard. However, this standard wasn't very strict. If they met a little, they would be selected. As for the two of you, your starting point is relatively low, and you're much worse than your peers. But don't be discouraged. You've already proven yourselves. I don't need to say more about this. Yi Tianyun smiled and said, "The two of you must not be arrogant or rash. Follow the previous pace. There's no need to rush your cultivation. I don't want you to mess up your pace." "Yes, Master." The two of them nodded heavily. They naturally knew what to do. Immediately after, Tianyun flicked his hand, and a ray of light landed on Tan Tiankong's foot. Following that, the injury healed, and there was no problem at all. This kind of injury, to Tianyun, could be healed with a flick of his hand. It wasn't difficult at all. Thank you, Master. After Tan Tiankong felt that the injury on his foot was healed, he immediately knelt down and kowtowed to Tianyun 3 times. Tianyun nodded and said, "That's about all I've done for you. Every time I return, I'll give you some pointers. At the same time, I'll check on your cultivation. I won't kick you out if your progress is too poor. No matter how fast you cultivate, it's your own business. I only need you to do one thing, and that is to be loyal to the 3 realms. That's enough." This was the focus of Tianyun's training of his disciples. If one day he was no longer here, or if he was trapped somewhere for many years, the 3 of them would be especially important. They could become the generals that guarded the 4 directions. That's for sure. They patted their chests, and their expressions were full of seriousness. "We will always be loyal to the 3 realms, loyal to Master. We will never betray them." This was their hometown, and they were instilled with Tianyun's deeds since they were young. It had always been to protect the sect, and now it was to protect the 3 realms. Everything was so great, and they also wanted to continue this greatness. Tianyun nodded with satisfaction. After giving some instructions, it was almost time to leave. After a warm moment with Shi Shuayan, he simply said a few words and headed to the Heaven Cultivation God realm. Previously, the great Devis said that after his cultivation broke through to the Heavenly Venerable Realm, he would take him to a special area to strengthen him. Now that he had broken through to the Heavenly Venerable Realm, and the matters here were also done, it was time to go to the Heaven Cultivation God realm and find the great Devis. Chapter 1540. Tianyun easily arrived at the periphery of the Heaven Cultivating God territory through the teleportation divine stone. He would not directly teleport to the Heaven Cultivating God territory. That would definitely be detected. When he arrived outside the passageway, the guards immediately intercepted him. Tianyun simply took out a token, extended it forward, and they immediately let him in. Without saying too much, he easily entered. With this token, he was equivalent to a person in the Heaven Cultivating God territory, so he could naturally enter easily. "Look, that's the disciple of the Great Elder. I heard that he was a divine lord before, but now he has broken through to Heavenly Venerable. This speed is really fast. How long has it been, and he has already broken through to Heavenly Venerable? Maybe he was already about to break through, and just happened to break through during this period of time. Who cares? With the protection of the Great Elder, his future is limitless. The key is that he can get so many benefits without any credit. I really can't accept it. Yeah, it's really enviable. Why don't we have such treatment, and can only guard the door here?" A group of guards looked at Tianyun's back as he left, each and every one of them indignant, feeling that it was really unfair. The great Devis had just returned, and he became the Great Elder. The power he controlled was not low, and the resources he controlled were naturally not little. As the disciple of the great Devis, how could he lack resources? With a wave of his hand, he could get a large number of resources. The great Devis was the son of the Heaven Cultivating Domain Lord. Just thinking about it was scary. Tianyun went directly to the temple where the great Devis was. Under the guidance of the guards, he came to the study room of the great Devis and gently knocked on the door. "Come in." The deep voice of the great Devis came from inside. After Tianyun walked in, he said respectfully, "Master, disciple is here." The great Devis looked up, and after sizing him up, he smiled and said, "Your cultivation broke through to Heavenly Venerable so quickly. It's really unexpected. But the most important thing is that you are a 10 refining Earth Monarch. This is something that Master never thought about." It wasn't strange for the great Devis to know about this matter. It was definitely Heavenly Venerable Sword C and the others who came over to tell him. Otherwise, he wouldn't know. This can be considered a fluke. This disciple has been trying to force a breakthrough, but I didn't expect that I would actually succeed. The difficulty of it is truly unimaginable. If possible, I really don't want to cultivate the 10 refinements Earth Monarch. Tianyun shook his head. These words were not spoken randomly. Back then, when he was trying to break through to the 10 refinements Earth Lord, it was really quite difficult. Whatever crazy mode was useless. If not for his strong foundation, he would have died there. No matter what, you've set a precedent, letting people know that there really is a saying of the 10 refinements Earth Monarch. Although it's very difficult, there are still people who keep trying. After all, it's a miracle. The great Devis closed the book in his hand and smiled. However, you can't expose your identity so easily. Otherwise, even I won't be able to protect you. I can only escape with you. The heavenly cultivation god realm was very strong, but it was not invincible. Under the encirclement of so many people, it was definitely difficult to protect him. That's for sure. Tianyun smiled. He didn't intend to expose it casually. Then, he took out a book and handed it over. Master, this is a little bit of my experience of cultivating the 10 refinements Earth Lord. Cultivating the 10 refinements Earth Lord is extremely difficult. This is just one of the methods of reference. Even if you cultivate according to what I said, you might not succeed. Everyone's situation is different, so you can't overly follow what I said. What Tianyun gave out was indeed the cultivation method of the 10 refinements Earth Lord. In fact, it was just a little bit of experience. For example, the attributes of the physique, or some environmental support. These were all not big deal content. To others, this was extremely hidden content. To him, that was the most ordinary content. He was just a 10 refinements Earth Lord. He had crazy mode, so nothing was as strong as this. In the future, if there were more 10 refinements Earth Lords, it wouldn't affect him. He was the first to become a 10 refinements Earth Lord. This was true. Moreover, even if he didn't say it out, there would be people who would slowly find it out in the future. It was just a matter of time. Right now, he simply gave the method to the great Devis. After all, they were all on the same side. It didn't matter if they found out. He was afraid that his opponents would find out. That would be the worst. This. The great Devis was excited. Although he was a master, he would never force his disciples to give him any treasures or martial arts. Now that Tianyun took the initiative to give it to him, it definitely made him excited. He definitely wanted to gain some insights and see how he had succeeded. However, he was too embarrassed to ask. Now, it was different. Tianyun took the initiative to give it to him, so he was excited. He immediately flipped through it and sighed. Thank you, Tianyun. You are my master. There is no need to thank me. It is nothing at all. Tianyun smiled. You are too modest. If you give it to other forces, this experience is at least equivalent to an elder's position. It is also equivalent to many upper-level celestial venerable treasures. The great Devis said solemnly. Anyway, I think it is nothing. Master, you can use it however you want, Tianyun said casually. Yes, I will use it in the vast divine sect. I will not promote it here. The great Devis nodded. For this, I owe you a favor. Isn't this a little too exaggerated? Isn't it normal for disciples to give offerings to their master? Tianyun was speechless. How could he owe him a favor? Others might think it is normal, but I don't think so. Especially such a precious experience. The great Devis smiled. It is settled. I have nothing to give you, so I can only say this. Master, didn't you say that you will bring me to a special area? Isn't that equivalent to a reward? Tianyun said. You can't mix them up. Both of them are different. The great Devis smiled. That is all for now. I will make some preparations and get ready to set off later. Then, the great Devis went to busy himself and asked Yi Tianyun to wait here. Yi Tianyun felt a little bored and went to wait outside the hall. Just as he stepped out and stood there for a short while, he heard a piercing sound. Isn't this the genius who won several battles in a row? Are you here to look for the great elder? At this time, a group of cultivators came over. The leader was a heavenly god expert, but he was not an elder. He was a deacon. Not all heavenly gods could become elders. The great Devis was an exception. Chapter 1541. Heavenly God Xiao Xing's brows furrowed, and he was enraged by the fact that Yi Tianyun was ignoring him. Little brat, do you think you can do whatever you want just because you have the Grand Elder as your master? You have to follow the rules of the heavenly cultivation god realm, not the rules of the vast divine sect. Heavenly God Xiao Xing was enraged, and he pressed a hand down toward Yi Tianyun. A burst of power appeared in the air before crushing down upon his head. Kneel. Heavenly God Xiao Xing was naturally very displeased by this. Regardless of what the rules were in the outside world, disobeying one's superior in the heavenly cultivation god realm was a grave sin. Yi Tianyun straightened his body in the face of the surging pressure, and he unleashed his super heavenly venerate title to nullify a lot of the heavenly god's power. Furthermore, he was quite powerful, so this power posed no threat to him at all. Heavenly God Xiao Xing's expression darkened. He didn't think that his attack would have no effect on Yi Tianyun. This was quite humiliating for him. Impudent! You dare to resist? Heavenly God Xiao Xing flared up with rage, and he unleashed a ferocious palm strike toward Yi Tianyun. A cold expression appeared on Yi Tianyun's face. He didn't think that Heavenly God Xiao Xing would dare to attack him. Heavenly Cultivation Star's palm came crashing down. If he was struck, he definitely wouldn't die, but he would definitely be severely wounded. Heavenly Cultivation Star's attack was quite vicious, and it was clear that he was enraged. Crazy Damage Mode, activate. Yi Tianyun quickly activated his power, and his combat prowess soared drastically. His body disappeared on the spot in a flash, and he instantly teleported beside Heavenly God Xiao Xing before lashing out with a ferocious kick. Heavenly God Xiao Xing was sent flying before crashing violently into the nearby wall. Humph! Heavenly God Xiao Xing let loose a muffled groan, and blood trickled down the corners of his lips as he sustained some internal injuries. This kick was naturally not light, but it wasn't very powerful either. If Yi Tianyun had unleashed his full power, he would definitely have been able to insta-kill Heavenly Cultivation Star, but he didn't do so. If he did that, he would definitely be held accountable, and he didn't want to put the great Devis in a difficult position. Since his opponent didn't intend to take his life, he wouldn't take his opponent's life either. Such a situation shocked the people around them. They didn't expect Heavenly Cultivation Star to be knocked flying. This was a heavenly venerate. Even if there was some prediction error, how could the prediction error be so big? An attack that even a heavenly god couldn't react to, just how strong was it? You dare to resist? You're courting death. Heavenly God Xiao Xing slapped the ground with rage and sprang into the air. The power of a heavenly god erupted forth, instantly enshrouding the entire divine palace. Why can't I resist? My master cultivates the heavenly god realm, but I don't. Since I'm not a disciple of the heavenly god realm, why do I have to follow the rules here? Yi Tianyun had a cold expression on his face. They had never joined the heavenly god realm. They had only come last time to prove that the great Devis's method was correct. It was impossible for them to join the heavenly god realm. Besides, even the great Devis didn't plan on letting them join the heavenly god realm. They could just stay in the vast divine sect. Heavenly Cultivation Star's expression was terrifyingly dark. Even so, you still have to follow the rules here. It looks like I'll have to teach you a lesson on behalf of the Grand Elder. He really was about to explode with rage. He was a heavenly god, yet he was sent flying by a heavenly venerate just like that. He would be utterly humiliated if word of this got out. He had to teach Yi Tianyun a lesson no matter what. Otherwise, he really would be humiliated. Just as he was about to teach Yi Tianyun a lesson, a low voice sounded beside him. Who is it that wants to teach my disciple a lesson in my place? The great Devis had already arrived at this moment, and he glowered at Heavenly Cultivation Star with a cold expression. Heavenly God Xiao Xing quickly withdrew his aura and didn't dare to act recklessly. However, he still spoke in a solemn voice, Grand Elder, your disciple is disrespecting his superior. If you don't do something about it, he'll definitely attract trouble. I'm teaching him a lesson in your place so that the reputation of the Heavenly God realm won't be tarnished. That's my business, and it has nothing to do with you. If there's nothing else, then please leave. The great Devis completely ignored him. That's all I have to say. Heavenly Cultivation Star turned and left with his people. The great Devis's status was much higher than his, and if he didn't obey, then he would be disrespecting his superior. He was in the wrong anyway. Yi Tianyun was a guest here, so why did he have to follow the rules here? Besides, he didn't do anything. All he did was not greet him. Who did Heavenly Cultivation Star think he was? After Heavenly Cultivation Star left, the great Devis turned to Yi Tianyun with a smile. I only left for a short while, and something happened. I had no choice. I couldn't sit still, so I came out for a stroll. Who would have thought that I would encounter him? Yi Tianyun shrugged. It looks like Master's position here isn't stable yet. That's for sure. I've only been here for a short while, so if I haven't made any significant contributions, who would listen to me? I've really been away for too long. The great Devis smiled. So be it, let's not talk about this anymore. We can set off now. After that, Boundless Heaven God brought him away. Not long after they left, someone came out from the side, glanced at them for a moment, then turned and left. Most likely, he was going to report something to the higher-ups. The great Devis left the Heavenly Cultivation Divine Realm with Yi Tianyun and flew toward another divine realm on a spirit ship. Along the way, the great Devis explained, the place I'm taking you to is actually quite simple. It's a Heavenly God region. Since you've already broken through to the Heavenly Venerable stage, there won't be any danger. A Heavenly God region? Yi Tianyun faltered slightly. Could it be a Heavenly God historical site or something like that? More or less. Due to the instability of the space, it's not advisable to stay there for too long if your cultivation base is too low, so you have to break through to the Heavenly Venerable stage. When you get there, you just need to stroll around and cultivate for a while. There's still a lot of Heavenly God power there. You should go there and experience it, the great Devis explained. Isn't Master a Heavenly God? Can't I just experience your Heavenly God power? Yi Tianyun was puzzled. That's not the same. That's the power of an ancient Heavenly God. I often go there to comprehend something, and that's why I'm able to successfully break through. The great Devis smiled. Your senior brothers are all like this. I'll take them to this region to cultivate and comprehend in advance. To break through to the Heavenly God stage, you have to start from the Heavenly Venerable stage. If you wait until later, you might have already gone down the wrong path. Chapter 1542. Under the guidance of the great Devis, they passed through several divine realms and many turbulent space flows before finally arriving near the Heavenly God region. There are many turbulent space flows here. Did Master come here alone? Yi Tianyun looked around. There were many turbulent space flows here, much more than in the outside region. If a divine lord was sucked in, they would undoubtedly die. Unless they were some special divine lords, they would definitely die. No wonder the great Devis told them to break into the Empyrean realm. After breaking through to the Empyrean realm, the difficulty of coming here would be much lower. At the very least, they wouldn't die after being sucked in by the turbulent space flows. Of course, there were some turbulent space flows that didn't necessarily mean anything. They would just casually transfer people to other regions. These were considered lucky. Some would directly tear people apart and grind them to powder. It would be difficult for them to come back to life. Yes. Back then, I came here alone, so the danger level was quite high. The great Devis smiled. He looked ahead and said, "This place has basically been completely plundered, so there's no need to think about picking up any leftovers. There are only some auras left behind and some traces left behind by the ancient heavenly gods. If you meditate on them, you can still perceive many things." Tianyun nodded. There were many ruins nearby, but they had definitely been plundered. Unless it was new or something that had appeared long ago, it would have been plundered countless times. In particular, the ruins of the heavenly gods were crazily plundered. Every brick had likely been dug up and not a single detail had been missed. Thus, it was impossible to hope that one could make a fortune by picking up leftovers. Since everything had been dug up, what else could there be? The great Devis didn't bring him here to pick up leftovers, but to see the traces of battle and some insights left behind by the ancient heavenly gods. It's in this region. The great Devis brought Tianyun out of the spirit ship. The place they chose was relatively central and also relatively safe. There were basically no turbulent space flows in this region and it seemed very safe. Tianyun looked around. This region was desolate and there were dilapidated ruins everywhere. However, he could see many traces of battle. After staring for a while, he immediately felt a surging battle intent, as if he was brought back to the battle between god emperors. Apart from that, there were also some ancient ruins on the walls with many things carved into them. Some of them were things the ancient heavenly gods had comprehended in passing, and they could also be used as a reference. Tianyun really needed this kind of comprehension. Indeed, he only needed experience points to level up, but there were many things that he needed to comprehend on his own in order to become stronger. For example, in the area of martial arts, or in the area of the soul, many of them needed to be done personally. Just relying on experience was really not enough to improve anything. "Look, the place I brought you to," Boundless God said with a smile. "If you say it's useful, it's useful. But if you say it's useless, it's not particularly useful. So, if you want to use this to repay the favor, I'm not that thick-skinned. You'll have to stay here for a while. I'll come and get you after a while. If you want to leave, that's fine too. Just choose a place where the turbulent space flows are not chaotic." Tianyun nodded. There weren't too many highlights here, but for him, it was still a lot of help. According to the great Devis, there was really no way to repay that favor. "Alright, I'll go back by myself when the time comes." Tianyun planned to take a detour here. If he wanted to go back, he could use a teleportation god stone to leave, which was much faster than riding a spirit ship. "Alright, there won't be any cultivators coming here. Even if there are, as long as you don't provoke them, you'll be fine." The great Devis exhorted a few words and then left. The great Devis's job was basically done. His goal was simple. Although it seemed shabby, he was able to break through to the heavenly god realm because of this. Otherwise, he wouldn't have brought Tianyun here in advance. After the great Devis left, Tianyun casually wandered around the heavenly god ancient site. As soon as he entered, he immediately felt the power of the heavenly god. Compared to the power released by the current heavenly god, he felt that it was much thicker, as if they weren't on the same level. It was obviously the power of the heavenly god, but there was a difference between the early and late stages of the heavenly god's power. He didn't know how the heavenly god of that era cultivated to form such a strong power. Although Tianyun had experienced the memories of that battle, he didn't know the details of the process. However, judging from the ancient materials he had obtained from killing the heavenly gods, they were quite rare. If he used them to cultivate, he would be able to improve a lot. Immediately, he walked in front of one of the walls. After sensing it for a bit, he immediately discovered that it was a martial art. He didn't expect that there would be a heavenly god who would carve his martial art on the wall. If he hadn't been attacked, perhaps this martial art would have been sealed in a place where he could see it. Tianyun sized it up and scanned it with his appraisal eye. He immediately made a copy of the contents on it and analyzed it at the same time. Soon, after some analysis, Tianyun was stunned. This martial art is completely different from the current one. If I want to use it, I need to be at least at the level of 3 or 4 planets in order to fully display it. Tianyun was dumbfounded. It was extremely difficult for current cultivators to condense planets. It was as if they had been sealed. At most, they could condense 2 planets. 3 was already extremely difficult. Whether it was a heavenly venerate or a heavenly god, condensing 2 planets was already not bad. As for those with more than 3 planets, it was even more difficult. However, this martial art required 3 planets to get started. Without 3 planets, it was basically impossible to display its effects. The condensed planets can be the same. No wonder. After Tianyun continued to analyze, he discovered that it was possible to condense 3 planets of the same attribute at the same time. Tianyun couldn't condense the same planets. To be exact, he could still condense planets of the same level. However, he needed to reach a point of energy balance, which was a little difficult. The main reason was that he was too lazy to do so. One more similar planet was equivalent to having one more energy reserve planet. In the past, the powerhouses had condensed similar planets or multiple planets in order to display the true effects. Now, because the difficulty was too high, the martial arts they were learning were all weakened versions. So that's what happened. No wonder their energy is so thick. Tianyun had just arrived. After analyzing a set of ancient martial arts, he immediately understood what was going on. Chapter 1543. From the looks of it, there were probably quite a few 10 refinement Earth monarchs back then. Tianyun frowned. The title he obtained was only the number 1 Earth monarch throughout the ages. In other words, it was only within the 10,000 eons. This meant that beyond the 10,000 eons, there would still be Earth lords of the 10 refinements. According to this cultivation method, there would definitely be 10 refinement Earth monarchs in the past, and there would definitely be quite a few of them. It wouldn't be like this era where they couldn't even condense 2 planets. This made him feel very strange. Why wasn't this problem a long time ago, but now it had appeared? Could it be that something had changed? Even if the resources were scarce, it didn't mean that there were no resources. No matter what, they could nurture a few 10 refinement Earth monarchs. But now, apart from him, there was no one. This was really tragic. Could it be that something has changed? Tianyun frowned. He felt that he had to break through that limit to become a 10 refinement Earth monarch. Thinking back to the various difficulties back then, it was as if they had been sealed layer by layer, making it difficult for them to break through. Tianyun looked up at the sky. Perhaps it really wasn't a problem with the cultivation method, but something specific had changed. But who had the power to change the situation of an era? What was the meaning behind it? With this question in mind, Tianyun continued to explore the other heavenly god ancient sites. In the other heavenly god ancient sites, he could also find similar martial arts engraved on stone tablets. Some only had half of them left, and only a small portion of the content was visible. This didn't hinder Tianyun's investigation. Through the analysis of the appraisal eye, he could still find some clues. It was still the same situation as before. They all required multiple planets to cultivate. It was clear that many planets could be condensed at that time, but for some reason, they couldn't condense planets easily. These are really full of mysteries. Tianyun shook his head. He couldn't find the corresponding records here. It could only be said that there might be some inside information about the battle between the god emperors. When he continued to investigate, a wave of energy quickly surrounded the entire area, sealing off the surrounding space. Tianyun quickly stepped outside and discovered that there were 3 heavenly gods surrounding him. One of them looked very familiar. It was Heavenly Cultivation Star. Who would have thought that Heavenly Cultivation Star would chase them all the way here? Since he had come, there was no doubt that he wanted to kill him. Brat, let's see if you can survive this. A sinister expression appeared on Heavenly God Xiao Xing's face. Who would have thought that Heavenly God Xiao Xing would hold a grudge against him and even gather 2 other heavenly gods to surround him? Heavenly Cultivation Star, you summoned 2 heavenly gods for me. You sure have a high opinion of me. Tianyun's expression remained indifferent, and he was not fearful in the slightest. Looking closely at the other 2 heavenly gods, he discovered that these 2 heavenly gods did not cultivate the heavenly god realm, but were from other god realms. Indeed, he really thinks quite highly of you. Heavenly Cultivation Star chuckled coldly. It's just that I didn't think that the great Devis would leave so quickly. We were still a step too slow. Tianyun's expression darkened. It looked like the 3 of them were not here to kill him. Instead, they were here to deal with the great Devis. The heavenly cultivation god realm sure is rotten. Who would have thought that they would kill their own people and collude with powerful beings from other god realms? What a bunch of lackeys. Tianyun shook his head. He was glad that his master had left first. Otherwise, it would be very difficult for him to escape if he was intercepted here. You dare to call me a lackey? Heavenly Cultivation Star was enraged. Talking to Tianyun really did infuriate him to the point of vomiting blood. You're either a lackey or a traitor. What's the difference? Tianyun chuckled coldly. Heavenly Cultivation Star calmed his rage and stared at him as if he were looking at a dead man. So be it. What's the point of bickering with a junior? You can say whatever you want. This mouth of yours will disappear very soon. Your master will be here to accompany you very soon. It was quite clear that they had made up their minds to destroy the great Devis. As for what they were going to do, it was unclear. In particular, Tianyun didn't know who the mastermind behind all of this was. What do you want? What did my master do to make you want to do this? Tianyun asked. There's no need for you to know that. Just be obedient and go to hell. You'll slowly find out the truth. Heavenly Cultivation Star signaled to his companions with his eyes, indicating that they were about to begin. The 3 heavenly gods immediately sprang into action. They stretched out their hands to seal off the space around Tianyun before quickly compressing it. If things continued like this, Tianyun would definitely be flattened. The other 2 heavenly gods didn't say anything, as if they were mutes. It could only be said that they had no interest in Tianyun. A heavenly venerate was nothing more than an ant to them, so they couldn't be bothered to say anything. However, this is the effect that Tianyun wanted. If he was careless, he would die. Immediately, Tianyun's figure flashed and disappeared from the place. The impregnable sealed space was like an open door, allowing him to leave and stay as he pleased. In the next moment, Tianyun appeared next to one of the heavenly gods. He waved the 5-dragon divine spear in his hand and stabbed it heavily. Roar! The 5 dragons pierced into the heavenly god's body, and before the other party could even scream, they directly detonated, completely blowing the heavenly god up. With the crazy damage mode and the stacking of skills, the power directly soared to the maximum. How could it not be a one-hit kill? Especially these heavenly gods, they didn't have any protection, they didn't even summon any heavenly venerate spirit treasures. Who would have thought that Tianyun would easily break through their blockade and directly kill them? Ding! Successfully killed heavenly god Jian. Reward: 6 million compressed EXP, 60,000 compressed crazy point, 40,000 compressed SPS. Obtained flowing cloud spirit treasure, lower level heavenly venerate spirit treasure, golden plated spirit treasure, middle level heavenly venerate spirit treasure, flowing wind spirit treasure, upper level heavenly venerate spirit treasure. Reward: 100,000 compressed EXP for killing a heavenly venerate spirit treasure. After killing a heavenly Venerate spirit treasure, a terrifying amount of compressed EXP exploded, a lot more than the heavenly Venerate level. Feeling the surging EXP again, it's really cool. Level up. Ding! Congratulations to player Yi Tianyun for successfully leveling up to lower level Heavenly Venerate middle stage. The heavenly gods he killed before, plus the heavenly gods he killed now, accumulated enough EXP to level up, but that's it. If he wants to continue to level up, he needs to kill several heavenly gods in a row. He needs too much EXP now. You're tuning into the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.